All right, everybody, I will call the Nottingham Planning Board meeting for Wednesday, October 12th, 2022 to order. First order of business is just introductions. I'll start on my right with Mr. Davies.
Buzz Davies, alternate.
John Moran.
Ian McKinnon.
Edward Veal.
Susan Mooney.
Sherry Sandler.
Charlene Anderson.
Blair Haney, SRPC.
And Mr. Davies will be seated in voting for Mr. Anderson tonight. So we have a couple of items on the agenda. We're going to take a couple of things out of order because we've had requests for continuances. The first one is case 22-009-SUB, application from Robin Comeau requesting a two-lot subdivision, property located at 176 Stevens Hill Road, identified as tax map 49 lot 4. Reminder, Stevens Hill is a designated scenic road, and the applicant has filed for a conditional use permit. So the applicant has requested to be continued to October 26th as they're working on some additional things. One thing, Kevin, to remind them of with the conditional use permit, part of that requires Concom input. So if they haven't approached the Conservation Commission for input specific to the conditional use permit, I would recommend that they try to do that in between meetings. I don't know if they
So did they not go to the one last month?
I believe they did go to Concom. I think she crafted her CUP based upon feedback from Conservation Commission,
okay,
if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, it was just, I just don't want to delay it again if, you know.
Sam is here if you want to ask him for his take on that.
Mr. Merritt, you're welcome to come up to the table just to confirm or deny that piece. So as part of the conditional use permit process, there is a conditional use permit applied for with this case. Part of, in our zoning, the conditional use permits are Conservation Commission input. Let me get to that spot. So I want to make sure that the applicant either has met with Concom already for that, or that they do in between the next meeting if they can get in there in that time.
Yeah, weren't they scheduled to go before you guys?
Yes, and they came to our September 12th meeting. I don't recall that conditional use permit was in the conversation at all. And what Mr. Demerit did is he crafted a letter, sent it along to the planning board, and I'll just read it out loud for people in the audience, if I may. The Nottingham Conservation Commission at its meeting on September 12th met with Robin Comeau and her son and daughter-in-law. Suggestions from commission members to the Comeaus about possible driveway crossing restoration included a stone ford used by loggers or a culvert with an open bottom so that water from the wetlands could penetrate the soil in the crossing area and reduce the amount of water flowing onto the neighboring property.
And I apologize, the actual verbiage of the conditional use permit is that the Nottingham Conservation Commission has provided comments relative to the value of the wetland under construction and design of the proposed project as it relates to the wetland. So I guess if comments specific to that part haven't been made, I would welcome them from the Concom if possible for the next meeting, which I can draft an email to the chair.
Yeah,
okay.
Thank you.
So with that, we have a request to continue to October 26th at 7 p.m. Would anybody like to make such a motion?
When was the last time they were here? I'm just curious. 2 meetings ago.
I can't remember the actual date. It's been a few.
Yeah, it's been at least.
Was it August?
I think it was sometime in August.
Okay. Yeah. Did we already make the motion to extend past our window?
We haven't made a specific motion about any direct window. We've just been making motions,
Assuming both parties are okay with the continuation past our window?
Yep. Because it's at their request. Yep.
Mr. Chair, I move that we continue case 22-009-SUB to October 26th at 7 p.m.
Is there a second?
Second.
So it's a motion by Ms. Mooney and a second by Ms. Sandler. Any further comment?
Was there any reason why, given why the extension was requested?
So she has something going on, and don't quote me verbatim, but she's working with DES right now, some kind of appeal process.
appeal the after-the-fact denial.
Yeah, that's without being
Right.
definitive, but I think it has to do with that. I know she's in appeal with DES.
Any further discussion on that? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, motion carries 7-0. The next case we're gonna take just out of order will be case 22-014-SUB, application from Joseph Falzone on behalf of George Williams and Diane Kelly requesting an 8-lot subdivision. The property is located on Stevens Hill Road in Nottingham, New Hampshire, identifies tax map 46 lot 7. Again, Stevens Hill Road is a scenic road. This applicant is also requested to be continued to October 26. That was to provide additional time for, I believe, new plans that, have those actually been located?
So, I don't know if you saw the email chain that I sent back and forth. Per Joe, the plans that he said were dropped off were just for the Conservation Commission, and they picked them up.
Okay,
I didn't know exactly if there was some outside of
okay. So we should be getting new plans
that.
at some point?
Yes, that's is my assumption.
All right, we'll just request
But I
that,
did email, and you're in on that email.
yeah, okay. We'll request that they get those back to us before, at least a week ahead of time, before that meeting.
They're waiting, they're on the agenda for the
And then,
Concom as well, right?
correct, that was part of it, was that they had to meet with the Concom. So, we did hold a site walk in between, and the applicant had indicated that they would be revising plans, changing this from an 8-lot subdivision to a 7-lot, and there'd be some revisions to, the way the acreages in the back would be owned by 2 landowners instead of, all the landowners there, all 8 lots. So do we have would anybody like to make a motion to continue this one to October 26th at 7 PM?
Mr. Chair, I move that we continue case number 22-014-SUB to October 26th at 7 PM.
With deliverables by 10/19.
With deliverables, a week prior.
Thank you. We have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
That's a motion by Ms. Mooney, a second by Ms. Anderson. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries 7-0. So again, for any abutters, no new notifications go out, it's simply, this is the continuance, and then the agenda will post again. If we do get new materials, in advance far enough, they'll be posted to the website as well. All right, brings us back to order. So we have a continued case 22-013-SUB, application from Doucette Survey on behalf of Mark and Lori Pitkin requesting a 4-lot subdivision, property located at 145 Guile Road, identified as tax map 40, lot 14. And I know, yeah, I'm sorry. Sit down and introduce yourself again for us, please, and just give us a quick recap of where we were from the last time we saw you and today.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Jack Kaiser with Doucette Survey. I'm here on behalf of my client and landowner, Mark Pitkin, and we are here to continue discussion of a potential 4-lot subdivision for his property located at 145 Guile Road. There were several items that were addressed on the new plan set that I dropped off, and I typed up a summary just to make it a little bit easier for not only the board but for myself to remember what it was that I did. So I don't know if there were any questions on any of those, or I don't want to waste everyone's time by reading through them item by item if everyone's already read it. Good idea? Okay. I did receive some comments from regional planning today. I assume you all have copies of those?
Yep. Please say yes.
Yep.
There were 2 items that were highlighted as not addressed. I was curious as to the board's stance on those 2 items.
So one of the items is site plans do not include construction details for the driveways or aprons. In general, that is a requirement of our plans, is to show the curb cut which is also what's, because wherever the proposed curb cut is generally what's utilized, going forward. So I do see proposed driveway location on the first lot. The other ones just aren't identified, but I believe that's all those, that same symbol would be what's utilized for that.
That's correct. I just didn't wanna clutter up the plan too much, so I just indicated typical and showed the three potential driveway locations.
Yeah, and oftentimes, you know, we do like to see the actual driveway extended into the building, to the buildable, I'm sorry, the lot envelope. So to show where the proposed driveway would go, obviously you're gonna be going within the buffer. We'd have to go through the buffer on, they proposed lot 14-2, the wetland buffer there, and, we'd look to avoid it on the first lot, 14-1. And we can get back to that, so. and-
Comment was more to like a detail of the driveway or apron. Does that fall more to just when they pull a driveway permit, Sean has a standard detail he basically gives the landowner?
Yeah, it basically, so if it's meeting paved road, you know, that first part of the apron has to be paved, and then it has to be a negative grade to the road for a certain distance, so that, you know, basically to avoid, you know, runoff and things like that, getting into the roadway, more to get onto the site. Blair, does that capture kind of what you were?
Yeah, it was more the details. He did put in the locations, which was good to see. I think that was something that we had discussed, but separately it was about just showing the construction detail of, you know, what they were gonna look like.
Now, is that standard practice for the town for the requirement of a construction detail for a driveway, for a residential lot? The client did meet with the road agent, and he was okay with all the locations. 15-inch culverts were intended to be in place on each driveway, and he fully intended to meet any town standards that are in place for standard driveway construction. But in terms of a detailed plan, that wasn't something that we really anticipated.
It's in the zoning, or the subdivision regulations, construction drawings and location, curbing and paving, well, that's proposed streets, but drainage ways would be the culvert, radii of streets, driveways, access ways, and I'm trying to find some of the other language, but if it's not provided, that's fine, you have a right to ask for a waiver, so one or the other needs to be done. That was sort of my interpretation of this.
I'm just trying to think of the last frontage subdivision. I don't know if we required like a physical detail, like a typical detail to be on the plan.
Yeah, there was a recent one right across the street.
Yeah.
So it depends too, when it's major or minor subdivisions, the requirements are more stringent for a major, which this falls into. And then also, you know, when you're approaching, there can be other times too, like length of driveway, sensitive areas, slopes, you know, where additional things may need to be considered. So for me, in this case here, you know, a plan note or something added that just indicating that, that they'll be constructed, you know, in accordance with the permit of the building inspector or the road agent, I think would satisfy me.
I would agree, because I think when he writes his driveway permits, he actually has like bullet points of what the width is, how long that paved apron is. I think that's I think the driveway permit might even have it right on it. I don't know if you even required a waiver on those other frontage subdivisions from that. Second one.
Oh, I'm sorry, and the second, bullet point,
Soil erosion.
site plan does not include plans or details for stormwater and soil erosion control. Soil erosion is addressed, note 15 plan 1, stormwater control is not addressed.
So in terms of the stormwater control, I don't really know what would be required for that. I can say, however, that the majority of any water runoff, any additional water runoff created from the three, residential lots would all flow back into the existing wetland that's situated to the rear of the lots. Based on the topography and from what I've seen of the site, and I'm sure Mr. Pitkin could confirm this, that on the northerly end of the site, the water runs across Skyle Road onto our site. This then makes its way into, the large wetland and goes back across Skyle Road by way of the two existing culverts. There's a 24 and a 30-inch culvert. Flows across the street into the fairly recent subdivision right over there, and then looks like it heads kind of in a easterly direction out towards the rear. So I cannot envision any major impact to this existing drainage way caused by the construction of 3 single-family homes.
Yeah, you're saying, so the 24-inch pipe culvert currently existing is up at the northern edge there, and then the larger one is on the parent parcel, correct?
Yes, correct. Yep. Yeah, and those are shown on the topographic
And the
plan.
30,
Again,
which is where that stream is, the first order stream there.
Yeah.
So, I think, just to dot all the i's and cross the t's, something like this would be a waiver option, just to, and with those comments that you made, that, the reason for the request of waivers, any additional runoff created from this, was gonna be directed back onto the site, I think, and not off of the site. I think that would meet that purpose, in my opinion. The board's welcome to speak up.
The soils classification and descriptions, do we have that?
Yes, I did add those to the plan on the existing conditions plan, sheet 3 of the plan set. Here in the upper right corner, gives
Okay,
a
yeah,
brief
I see it.
description as to what they all are.
Yeah.
It's still all foreign to me, but maybe it makes sense to some of you.
So, Blair, where's the one for the first one, the construction details one? What part of the code is that? Wherever you were reading from.
Yeah, so 8.4 talks about specific plan information, proposed site conditions. And number 4 talks about construction drawings,
Ah, there we go.
and,
The stone foundation.
I took a more conservative interpretation of what that's saying.
Yeah, this is the section I was thinking of too, because if you read a lot of the other requirements, numbered requirements, it talks about like proposed grades and a lot of other proposed stuff, which I think, we don't even require that on frontage subdivisions, with plenty of lot.
I'm sorry, it's only required when? It's only required when? I didn't hear you.
We generally only require like site grading and drainage if you're building like a new road with ponds, or, I think sometimes when you get to open space subdivisions where lots are very tight together, you have to force grades for
Did you say
stormwater.
something about driveways?
No, it's just that they're kind of, this 8.4 just covers proposed site conditions, so it's
Okay.
everything from cisterns to, so if we're gonna require waivers, it's gonna be probably to dot our i's a number of numbers, I think it's almost the type of thing that we could just, I think like you said in the beginning, a note on the plan, just saying driveways to meet, construction to meet the, I guess we call it the Department of Public Works Director's recommendations.
Yeah, there's, one of them is in there, something to that effect. A note indicating that all road, well, again, it's road, all road and drainage work to conform to the standard specifications for construction in the town of Nottingham. I mean, that's number 10.
You could reformat that for a driveway instead of road. It's still kind of a generic.
I mean, you know, the hang up for me is not the driveway, it's the connection to the road. That's where I was thinking about it, because you have country drainage out there, right? I don't think you have stormwater infrastructure, right? So you need a culvert, and you need it to be paved to meet the existing, right, so.
Yeah.
Can you solve that with a note on the plan? Yeah, absolutely, right?
Like I was thinking, like so on sheet 2, you call out proposed driveway typical. We could even add to that and say proposed driveway with 15-inch culvert typical, and then via a note say, kind of similar to what you just said, driveway construction to meet town of Nottingham design and construction standards or whatever it is. Because realistically, even if we have and put a detail as a typical detail or construction detail on a plan, that's going to go on sheet 3, which is not going to be recorded. And then if somebody buys the property, they're more likely to get the recorded plan, which is sheet 2, which you wouldn't want to put those on. So I'm worried that we could have a detail put on that, and I don't even know if somebody's going to really see it. But if they go to pull a driveway permit with Sean, he hands them a sheet and it basically tells you all the minimum requirements for that driveway.
If that exists, then sure. My concern is that, yeah, this passes through here, and then you have 3 different people buy 3 different lots that do different construction standards, and it gums up the system. I mean, you know, I don't think we're gonna have chaos down there, but, you know, this is the time at which the expectation is where someone needs to prepare a plan to meet our town standards. If we don't want it to have, you know, if we're okay with notes or waivers, that's fine, you know. But if Sean has something that's available that, you know, is, and that's the approach, you know, that's where I make comments and you guys know better, right? You've been working in this town.
I'm maybe it's something we can check with Sean, but I'm quite sure he has like a kind of a standard template of like 5 things that he tells people.
Okay.
Because if people buy random lots that exist today, he still has those same notes when they go to pull a driveway permit.
Sure, yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think it's something that now coming to mind, it might be worth checking. But for this project, I feel like we can handle this via notes.
We can always,
and not gum up a plan.
as I say, if we're gonna do a waiver, we can, if, for the other part, I think it's 10.3 is the actual stormwater management plan. We can, if you're okay with it, I would recommend just knock out both of them in one waiver.
Okay.
And we could do that tonight if you have, do we have a blank waiver form? If you don't have a blank waiver form, we can simply just
Write it out.
And write, you know, that you request
Is that only
a
required?
waiver from section, you know, 16.1, I believe, was the, let me double check the section. Where you have 16.1 mentioned, I found it, the stormwater management plan in 10.3.
Yeah, it's, yeah.
Which does mention that we can require a stormwater management plan or for any parcel of land where one or more of the following conditions are proposed or present, a cumulative disturbed surface area exceeding 30,000 square feet, construction of a street, road, or driveway, so, you know, any new lot, potentially, disturbed environmentally sensitive areas or disturbed critical areas, so at least we have at least one of those criteria, but to potentially require the plan, so I would, and everybody could put a comment up if you feel differently, but I would, just say, we ask for a waiver from 10.3, that's the stormwater management plan,
16.1 is erosion and sedimentation,
and 16.1.
which I think he's addressed, I mean, at least with notes.
Yep.
I did mention that. So however you want to handle it. But yes, 16.1 is the one that captures.
Yeah, I think it's easy enough to just act on both in a waiver and just make it nice and clear. One thing I noticed, though, that, unless I'm missing it, I don't see a wetland scientist stamp anywhere.
No, I did not get that for this version of the
Okay.
plan. Obviously, I would for the final Mylar, and I'd
The
actually
wetlands were-
sign it myself too,
But the wetlands were delineated by a wetland scientist.
yes.
So yeah, we'll add that as a note. That would be a condition.
You have it on the cover sheet.
Yeah, the note
Oh,
is
sure.
on there that it was delineated by Gove Environmental. I just don't have I didn't chase them down for the stamp on this version. It was on the originally submitted versions.
Oh, maybe that's what I'm looking at. Yep.
All right, is there any further comment from the board? Otherwise, I will reopen the public hearing in case anybody here.
Well, the
Oh.
reference of the 250 feet from the North River Falls, roughly along the southwestern boundary of the proposed lot 4, falls short of where it should be at 250 feet. We
Yeah.
want to take issue with that, or?
So I had flagged that at the last meeting that looking at the New Hampshire DES website with the protected streams, shoreland buffers, that the parent parcel appeared to fall have parts of it. I believe the applicant addressed
Oh, thank you.
that none of the new lots are within that area. I'm sorry, Ms. Sandler, where were you?
General comments and, it
Oh,
was
he's-
sent out revisions to the plan.
This
Hearing.
one, the one that he provided kind of with his general.
Oh, okay. So that was your comments, I believe,
Yeah.
regarding the.
Yes, so the 250-foot, reference line from the protected shorelands barely touches the, I guess, the southwesterly portion of this parcel. So the 3 proposed lots that are not yet constructed, do not fall within the jurisdictional buffer.
But this is a 4th lot, is it not?
It's
It
a parent
is.
parcel. Yeah.
But the construction has already taken place on that, and the construction is
Okay.
well outside of the
Okay.
protected land.
And we did get a letter from the Lamprey River Advisory Committee. They're the committee for this region for, these kind of things, for comment from items that fall within this zone. Letter dated September 21st, 2022. I don't know if you received a copy of this, otherwise I'll read it anyway. It says, thank you for contacting us regarding a proposed subdivision on Guile Road. The committee has reviewed the plan sheets and we offer the following preliminary comments. Based on the plans, the site seems very wet generally, in addition to the delineated wetlands. Development of the site will surely result in negative impacts to the natural functions and values of these wetlands. We cannot ascertain from the plans how water flows on site. Do wetlands drain toward the river or in another direction? We recommend that you consult with the New Hampshire Wildlife Action Plan maps to see the site in the context of the surrounding area. If development is allowed, we offer these recommendations. Plans for individual houses should be submitted together so that impacts can be better understood in the context of the whole site. The cutting of the trees near the wetlands should be minimized. Best management practices should be required to minimize impacts from stormwater, and driveways should be sloped to direct stormwater away from wetlands. If the project proceeds and we receive a NHDES wetlands permit application, we will gladly provide more detailed comments based on the full application. So I think we've addressed a number of those items or discussed them. The cutting of trees near the wetlands, I don't know specifically was addressed. Is there any proposal involved, any language involved with this that's trying to keep like a buffer or a vegetative buffer around some of the wetlands that you're aware of?
It's really unclear exactly where the houses will be built, and according to my client, they may not be built on for 10 or 20 years. So as far as what trees will need to be cleared, it's not very clear to me at this point.
I mean, one of the things that we've kind of discussed on past cases is to put, you know, markers and signage where the wetland buffer is, that there be no disturbance beyond this point, and include that in the noted on the deeds as well, to protect the wetlands from after the fact and future use by future landowners. And so that's a possibility that we could put in both in the plan, in the required on the deeds, and then signage be posted.
Is that the 25-foot buffer you're thinking of?
Pools.
Yeah, because we only have, the only,
Yeah, so along the buffer line of the wetland,
you mean like the 50 or 75 foot?
yeah,
I think our regulations though allow for certain stuff to be done within those.
Yeah, we don't have anything currently in our zoning that precludes, cutting within that buffer, or within that setback. We do around vernal pools, but we're not around, wetlands in general.
Yeah, okay, that's what I was trying to.
So some applicants have proposed that as part of a plan. Critical wetlands have a different criteria. So some applicants have proposed that, but as part of the plan, you know, of adding language into the plan to try to, especially if it's a little larger wetland or, you know, higher functioning class wetland.
Well, I think Charlene's point also goes to, I think, I know it wasn't the last meeting, but I sent in those comments about one of the inherent issues we have with some of these frontage lots is the trigger for our stormwater management plan is oftentimes 30,000 square feet of disturbance is one they're always looking for. But when you're doing frontage subdivisions, we're not requiring full house plans, driveway plans, showing what the lawn limits are. It's not something really we can require on a single family home, because a builder might come in and say, I'm gonna switch the house, and it completely changes it. It's hard without that type of plan to say, oh yeah, this lot will not have a disturbance of 30,000. There's a number of recent subdivisions in the last 2 years that it's quite clear that the amount of disturbance on that lot is in excess of 30,000 square feet. But at the planning perspective, it's always hard for us to plan for that. And I think that kind of goes to something that is going to be an issue going forward on a lot of these is these types of applications. How do we confirm that the lot will not have a disturbance that triggers the stormwater plan? But it goes to, like you said, then you have to define what that limit of disturbance is so that the applicant can, with a straight face, say, yeah, we will not disturb more than 30,000. But it's kind of a bigger issue, I think, in
well, yeah,
individual application. It's always been hard. It's more of a, it would be probably require a change in the way we word our regulations and what we require.
and I think the other thing that we have seen, and we actually have a case in front of us, right now, I mean, in which you have a landowner who doesn't understand where the wetlands buffers are, and just, you know, clear cuts right up to it, or clear cuts right into it, or puts a structure, right over it, and, you know, I think that's, and, you know, let's face it, most of the land that's remaining in Nottingham is like this, a lot of wetlands on it, and, I think just.
No, I'm with you on it. I think it's, I just don't know if we can require the signing of the buffer,
Well, we
but I
could
do
certainly
think
ask
it's.
the applicant to do that for future protection of the wetlands, and also stormwater runoff.
We had looked at this property a number of years ago when the original owner bought the parent lot that is now being subdivided. And I would like to ask the board if Natural Heritage Bureau did a review of this lot originally. This is a very rich rich area for amphibians, but particularly for protected turtles. So if there has not been a Natural Heritage Bureau review of this area, I would highly recommend it. And then that would go into protecting the wetlands and providing tree cover for the wetlands and passage for wildlife.
There is no proposed disturbance of the wetlands. The driveways are in a location such that no wetland permits should be required. So I think that the proposed development does a pretty good job of keeping the wetlands, you know, as they are in their natural state.
I'm trying to think if you can even get an NHB report if it's not triggering a certain permit.
Right. I don't know the answer to that.
I have another design question. I'm looking at lot 14-1. Can you determine what the narrowest portion of this contiguous area is for me?
It's not below 50 feet.
Okay,
I verified all of that on all of these. I was very careful about that.
thank you.
You're welcome.
I think some of the confusion on that one is when we look at sheet 2 of 3.
Oh, yeah.
We've got the, you know, you have a 50-foot setback and a 75-foot setback.
Yep.
So the 75-foot wetland setback, are you putting that there to show for like septic systems and such, where they can't be put in that area?
Exactly. Yeah, that's the only reason we're showing that.
Right, but it's not, because I think normally part of it, when we see that 75-foot, we immediately think very poorly drained. So that's why, which would make that a much, you know, narrower lot, but it's actually not. It's just the septic can't go in that area.
Yeah, I mean, if it's okay with the board to remove that from sheet 2, just for, you know, so it doesn't confuse the matter. I know I was recently asked to do that on another set of plans that I'm not presenting that are going in front of you. But it certainly makes it a lot easier on the end user when they're looking at it, just figuring what the heck is going on. Because the, you know, the 4K areas are clearly shown on sheet 3.
Right.
And those are well outside of the, you know, the 75-foot buffer.
Yep.
So if it was permissible to remove those and just show the 50-foot building setbacks on sheet 2.
Yeah,
Happy with that.
I think just changing the verbiage of the legend, so it's a 75-foot, like septic setback, or
Yeah,
if that's the intent of that line.
being a recorded plan, I think I'd want to still see the septic setbacks still on there for construction reasons. For
Okay.
Any additional comment from the board at this time? Otherwise, I'll just open the public hearing back up, and then we can always bring it back. All right, so I'm going to reopen the public hearing. This is the time of night for anybody that would like to speak towards the application. We usually ask for those speaking for, in support of it, to come up first. Against, or just with questions, come up after. There's not that many people here tonight, so you can just come on up if you're just want to speak towards it. Please just identify yourself and address your comments towards the board. You don't have to get up. And if anybody gets up, we'll move it. Any other last call? All right, I will close the public hearing. All right, brings it back to the board. Is there any further discussion from the board?
waiver?
Yes, were you able to draft that waiver?
No, I'm not very good at multitasking. I wanted to kind of hear what you were
We'll give you
saying, so.
a couple minutes.
So I'm sorry, which, which had?
10.3,
And that's the
that's
stormwater?
stormwater management, and 16.1 is,
It's really Article 16 in general, right? So
yeah, sure. Article 16,
Okay, and what is Article 16?
drainage, erosion,
Drainage.
and sedimentation control standards.
To double check too, are we done with public comment?
Yeah, close that, yep.
Is this in the Aquifer Protection District? Did we?
I believe I looked that up, and it was not, but.
I don't think it is, but, because I'm pretty good about checking that every time.
Yeah.
I don't believe it is, but you're probably not gonna take my word for it.
Are you online, Kevin?
I have it right here.
Oh, never mind.
I can get to it.
Further, it might be just on the other side of it.
I don't believe so. I believe I looked at it too, but that was a little bit ago.
Yeah, that's what I was just looking at.
I just don't know, where is that in town?
So Guile Road is this road here.
It's a
So
weird map.
It's
It doesn't have
in the
all the roads
beginning
in it.
of Guile. So that's the beginning
No,
of
this
Guile.
is it right here, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is.
So it's kind
yeah,
of,
so nothing.
it looks like it's maybe
Yeah,
just on
nothing
the
on this.
outside,
Correct, not in the Aquifer Protection District.
just on the outside of it, pretty much. All right. Just checking.
Sorry, I tend to get wordy. I gotta approach a bench.
Yeah, just careful as you walk up, please, with the cords
that.
and everything. Thank you.
Good
All right, so we've received a waiver request for tax map 40, lot 14, 145 Gower Road. I, John Kaiser, seek the following waiver to the Town of Nottingham subdivision regulations, Article 10, Section 3, and Article 16 for the above case submittal. They request a waiver from these items based on the topography of the site. The runoff would be primarily be to the wetland to the rear of the lots, which is then carried off site and across Gower Road via existing culverts. Is there any further discussion on this waiver, or would anybody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the waiver request from Article or Section 10.3 and Article 16 of the subdivision regulations.
We have a motion by Mr. McKinnon. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Davies. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries 7-0. All right, Kevin, I'll make sure you get this. All right, so that cleans that piece up. The only other thing I noticed, unless I'm missing it on the notes, is that in our, one of the notes on the plan is supposed to be that the parcel, it's subject to, the subdivision falls under the Nottingham impact fee ordinance.
Oh, okay.
So we kind of capture that sometimes, it's, you know, all fees paid, but we usually have a plan note specifically, so that would be one more item to add on to the plans. That's under 8.4, it's the last one, number 19. All right, is there any further discussion on this application? If not, a motion would be in order. And the conditions, if it was for approval, the conditions are the ones that laid out in staff review, which are plan copies with professional seals and signatures, survey and wetland scientists, original Mylar with professional seals and signatures, all fees paid. It doesn't say it on there, but bounds to be set, and that note added, subject to the Nottingham impact fee ordinance.
I'll make a motion. Do you want me to reread all those or just say ditto?
I think it's fine to say.
I'll make a motion to approve case number 22-013-SUB with the standard conditions of approval that the chair just read off. Yep.
Is there a second?
A second.
So second by, motion by Mr. McKinnon, a second by Ms. Sandler. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries 6-1-0. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time. I'll get those notes added to the plan and probably bring the Mylar by after we set the monuments. I always prefer that the plans reflect what was actually set versus what's proposed to be set, because that does no one any good usually.
Yep.
Yeah, and they're granite bounds at corners, and then lengthy straight lines can be pins.
Yep, every 300 feet.
Yep.
Correct.
Thank you all again very much.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is case number 22-016-SUB, an application from Ann and Richard Bacon requesting planning board approval to subdivide a 7.3 acre lot into 2 lots. The property is located at 168 Gower Road, Nottingham, New Hampshire, identified as map 40, lot 4, and Gower Road again is a scenic road. If there's anybody here for the applicant, please come on up.
Which case number is it? Case number 16.
Number 16.
If you could introduce yourself and then give us a quick summary of the plan.
You got it.
Yeah.
Richard Bacon, I'm the property owner. It's lot 40-4, a little bit over 7 acres on Dial, and proposing a backlot subdivision. Minimum requirement in the front, I overdid it, but it's just over 2 acres and over 200 feet frontage. Backlot, 5 acres, with 30 feet of frontage instead of 20. There was a house on it, it was removed in 2020. The goal was originally to save the house, revamp it, and sell. But because of the condition and amount of renovations that have been done, it pretty much destroyed the house before I even got there. There's a small chunk of wet on the southwest corner, but other than that, I've been told by my wetland scientist that there is nothing else. I'm gonna propose 2 driveways, one in the 30-foot stretch, and then the existing driveway is, the house has been raised, and that's in place and paved. And at this point, I have no plans on building anything per se, but the area's there. And I'd like to keep whoever does build as far back as that 5 acres. I live directly across the street. I also want to crowd my neighbor up front. That's pretty much basic.
Okay, all right, thank you. And Mr. Haney, you had a chance to review this. Sorry, this is a new application before us, so the first thing we'll be doing is acting on application completeness. In your opinion, is there enough there for us to act on this as complete?
I believe so. I'm having a little trouble pulling up my documents, having trouble connecting. Oh, you have it here? Thank you. The only thing I noticed is that the owner's authorization form had not been completed. Obviously, he's here representing himself. I wasn't aware of that. So if you take that out, then yes, it would appear that the application is complete.
Okay. Yeah, so in essence, the owner himself is the applicant.
Right, it was unnecessary, yeah.
He's not appointing anybody else to be here, so there's a form we don't need. Okay.
And
Yes.
I can't see, I guess I'm missing it. Where is the frontage for the back lot?
30 feet on the front end.
Right, so it's just 30 feet.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's the neck.
Oh, sheet 2.
You're on the wrong map.
Sheet 2.
Yep,
Kevin, give me that.
okay, I'm all set.
I don't have one,
All right.
Oh, I
but
see.
I can see.
So, the first thing though, and then we can definitely get
No,
more
that's
plan
it.
specifics. Would anybody have a motion regarding the application completeness,
That's
please?
I'll make a motion that case number 22-016-SUB be determined to be complete.
I'll second.
That's a motion by Mr. McKinnon, second by Ms. Mooney. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
All those opposed, motion carries 7-0. The next one would be we should act on whether it's a development of regional impact.
I'll make a motion that case number 22-016-SUB is not a project or development of regional
I'll
impact.
second.
Again, a motion by Mr. McKinnon, second by Ms. Mooney, that this is not a development of regional impact. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, motion carries 7-0. All right, that's the formalities. Now we can get into the higher level discussion about the plan set specifically. Mr. Haney, I read your notes. It didn't look like there's anything specific called out anywhere on this.
The only thing I pointed out is that in the subsection of 2A, that the provision for backlots is that the parent lot must have been created prior to March 9, 1993. The plan references specifically note number 2 references subdivision from 2020. Obviously, there's 3 others in there, so I'm not exactly certain, the parent lot, when or how it was created, but the plan reference does reference something that's post 1993. So, I don't know if you can clarify.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
2020 is a reference to the 8-lot subdivision out back. Small section of that back line is connected to that. This parcel was in July of 1972, recorded as C3100. So it's plenty old. So that actually is just an abutting parcel reference.
Okay.
Thank you for that clarification.
Mr. Chair, I have a moment.
Yep.
I apparently seem to have two sheets, one of one. So like Buzz, I do not
I think it's just
have-
a, no, I think it's just a mislabel. Mine are also labeled sheet 1 of 1.
Page numbering sheet.
Thank you.
Typo.
Yeah. So you have one,
Okay, I got it.
one of them shows
Go by the name of the plan.
the total parcel, obviously, and the second one, which would be probably two of two, is the one that actually shows the back lot subdivision. Okay. So that would just have to be squared away on a revised plan. So it looks pretty straightforward. It looks like, based on your dimensional requirements, the minimum for one of the parcels has to have at least 200, okay, 200 feet of frontage. You're showing 238. The other one has to have a minimum of 20 feet of frontage. You're showing just over 30 feet for the neck, which is where the driveway would go up. It looks like it does meet the requirements of a backlot in that you don't have enough frontage for a standard subdivision. You don't have 400 feet, and you are over the 6-acre minimum threshold as well. So you'd mentioned that there are wetlands on the property?
There's, and you can't see it at that small scale, but there's a 10-foot radius on the, I would call it the southwest or westerly corner. It was 5 flags. I just had to circle over there.
Actually, so it basically extends off the
It's off
property.
the property.
Oh, I see it now, yep.
But that is the portion that is close enough to, so we just put it all.
Okay, but you're,
Other than that, there's nothing on
I got it, yep. So it's nothing that's within the setback of,
Correct.
All the wetlands on this road, and you found the one dry piece?
I know.
It's a mistake. It's a mistake. I got the one across the street, and that's 99%. But it does have that pond with the
Yep.
and I understand, based on your comment earlier, you want to keep the house, if, say, if you sold off this lot, you want to keep any house further back. I'd say one way to potentially accomplish that would be to, you obviously have plenty of contiguous area back there. You could shape that into such a way,
deed restricted.
or deed restrict it.
Yeah.
Yep. Let's say, otherwise, yeah, you could get rid of the buildable area in the front, that triangle, and make it a nice rectangle, and that would kind of force a buffer.
Ed, I still am confused on the backlot subdivision. What is the lot to the right of the backlot driveway? Is that a separate lot, or is that part of the?
Oh, so there's a lot that's existing that's separate from this tax map 40 lot 3, that's shown, that's the first house on the road to the left, that says house. That's a pre-existing lot, not part of this subdivision.
Okay.
This parcel is specifically,
So the parcel that's being divided is the one on the right-hand side and to the right of the 30-foot driveway?
yep.
Okay,
It wraps behind
So that 30-foot driveway would become the driveway for
the
the
back lot.
neck for the back lot.
yep, I understand now.
That's a goofy setup. They cut that acre off when they sold the parcel originally. So the Carters owned that, built that house, cut off an acre back in
The 70s,
like I was saying,
72, yep.
and then sold the property to Bob.
my only comment was we could put a note on there about that, actually, I think. Hold on a second.
Yeah.
Oh, now you're fine.
Well, there would need to be a note, again, about the impact fees if it's not on there.
Yeah, that'll be
So,
CO, correct?
That's usually when they're charged, correct, yeah.
so the backlot provisions in the zoning read, number 3, part B, one lot created must contain a minimum of 200 feet frontage and a minimum of 2 acres, so that's the lot A. This lot may not be further divided, so I was looking at the note, which is note number 6, saying basically the purpose of the plans to subdivide the subject parcel into 2 lots. Proposed lot B is a back lot per the Nottingham subdivision regulations. The back lot shall be deeded as unsubdividable. It's actually the other way around, I think. The
Can't subdivide.
lot A also, like, so essentially both lots are now,
Right.
that's what they're gonna be.
Technically, you can't subdivide it.
Right, you can anyway, but it's always, you know,
Yes, I'll just.
keeping somebody from getting a
Change that.
variance in the future, so. And then my only other question is, I don't know if Sue, you're gonna get to this, because this is a scenic road, I believe they do need to see you, correct?
Yes, yes.
Yes, I missed that, I apologize, I thought it was just the, area.
Change that on his Mylar. Two signatures.
Yeah, is there any proposed, removal of stone walls and trees?
Yeah, it will be to get into the 30-foot stretch, but I'll be, I want to make sure that what happens on my lot.
Save this. Don't matter to me.
Okay. And one thing that's always helpful is if there's gonna be, if there's a meeting that has to occur between now and final action on this, would be to flag any potential driveway locations. And we usually do ask for the curb cut to be shown. I don't see on either of these where the proposed curb cut would be for the back lot. And I know it's obviously gonna be within that 30 feet.
Yeah,
So I just recommend adding that.
That tight, I didn't think it was a big deal, but yeah, I can add that, that's not a problem.
2 dashed lines or something.
Yep. But yeah, throwing some stakes to the front to try to, that helps the road agent see it, and then if anybody wants to drive by, or the Concom wants to drive by to see, or where, you know, if you flag trees that might have to be removed, that's always very helpful.
John brought it up, and I'm not, rather than digging, should we have the signature block revised so that we could have multiple signatories from the board?
Yeah, we have a, if possible, change out the signature block. We usually have a standard one that just allows for additional signatures. You know, one block is labeled
It's
chair.
somewhere in the plan requirements.
We tend to allow as many members as possible to sign the completed plans.
One thing quick on the review sheet, Stratford,
Yep.
actually a couple things. Property is not in current use. We had to buy it all out. Back when we took 167 out, and at the time, the owner of 168 had both sides of the road. It's the only way he 10 acres. So when I purchased the lot in 2006, I bought my side out. He had to buy his side out, so it was, both those deeds are recorded in the registry.
Okay.
Both of them deeds.
Okay.
So, just an FYI.
Okay.
And, yeah, I missed the scenic road part. That was probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
For your reference, just for the signature block thing, we label out how many lines and stuff. It's section 8.3 in the subdivision, number 4.
They haven't looked at that one.
Yep.
the Conservation Commission, Sue, do I need to schedule to meet with you at a regular meeting?
Yes,
Or-
and it would be
Monday,
next
okay.
Monday, yes. And Mr. Demare, you can check in with him on the way out.
So in that case, we would, well, is there any further comment from the board at this stage on this application? If there's not, then obviously you've got a few cleanup items in between. You've got a meeting with the Concom. If that's enough time for you to potentially get those revisions done and the plans back to us, we could continue to October 26th is our next meeting.
Okay.
Sounds like
I
we're,
don't actually
otherwise it'd be the first meeting in November.
think I'm out of country. I'll warn you in advance, that's all.
It's fine. We just try to be, cognizant of
I think we have a number of
time.
stuff already continued to the 26th anyway.
So it'll have to be the next month's meeting.
Okay. And
November 9th,
Yeah, November 9th.
November 9th, sorry.
Yep.
2 meetings from now.
getting head nods.
Yep.
All right, so in between, obviously those cleanups, make sure to reach out to the Concom to get on there so we can get comments back about the scenic road part of it and have their input. Stake out any driveways and then, or proposed driveways,
Talk to
and then
Sean before the next meeting.
it's helpful, just that way they can have a chance to, provide comment if they see something that they really have an issue with, where one's already probably existing.
Sometimes just throwing a piece of flagging in the
Helps.
middle of that 30-foot, pace it off, which even bound,
Yeah,
you can
but
pace off, yeah.
Most likely I'm gonna hold it further away from Bill's side and try to keep it in that open area so we don't lose the vehicles that are up.
Yep.
And that's kind of the other one self-explanatory, so we get angles on that. So,
All right, is there a motion to continue to November 9th at 7 PM?
Mr. Chair, I move that we continue case number 22-016-SUB to November 9th at 7 PM. Deliverables a week earlier.
Second,
There's a motion by Ms. Mooney, a second by Ms. Anderson. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries 7-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is case number 22-017-SUB, application from Joe and Don Fernald requesting planning board approval to subdivide a 118.26 acre lot into 3 lots, property located at 54 Deerfield Road, Nottingham, New Hampshire, identified as map 52, lot 4-2. And if you can please identify yourself, Mr. Barry.
So, Mr. Chair, members of the board, my name is Christopher Berry. I'm with Berry Surveying and Engineering, representing the Fernald family here this evening. This application's been before you twice under design review. We wanted to make sure that we were headed down the correct proverbial road before we finalized the plans that you have before you. To summarize, Linda owned
Yeah, I'll leave it for
100-plus acres off from Deerfield Road. There's an existing roadway or driveway that goes down to the existing house down on the Tucker Lake, which is a few thousand feet from Deerfield Road. There is a large amount of frontage along Deerfield Road, but as you can see from the topographic plans and aerial views, a lot of that frontage is inaccessible, unusable, and undevelopable. So, what the family would like to do is subdivide the existing house off of the parcel through the creation of a private road, which section 15.4 allows you to do under the regulations, so that Joe and his wife Dawn could essentially build a structure on the remaining land, again, closer to Pawtucket Lake, on its own lot. And as was pointed out to us as part of the 15.4 regulation, is a minimum of 3 lots and a maximum of 3 lots. And therefore, a third lot, the second design review application was drafted in. Since then, we've finalized the land surveying effort that's required on site. There was some wetlands that were more central to the property that we originally didn't think we needed to delineate. but after we found where the best place for the driveway is in relation to the logging road, we found that most likely those wetlands should be delineated so we knew where they were on the plan, and to ensure that they weren't going to be disturbed in any way. The logging road was modified in a way that it would require construction for driveway. And so since that second design review, we've prepared a 17-page plan set, which includes standard subdivision sheets, provides for a really basic plan and profile sheet, how the roadway would be proposed to be widened to meet the fire lane requirements of FPA, what the grading for that would look like, some really basic sediment erosion control devices that would be proposed along the edge during that construction, the cul-de-sac design to ensure that fire engine could get in and turn around and get out, and then some really basic stormwater features in those areas. Most of the side of the road that we're proposing the construction on is a fill slope, so there's no ditching required or swales or anything like that required for stormwater enhancements. As the planner points out, we're in a number of different overlays. We do have the shoreline protection overlay adjacent to Pawtucket Lake, that's shown on topographic plans plan set. We also have a Mile Brook that crosses under the existing driveway at the entrance, and that's shown. The only reason that is important is because there's a specific 50-foot setback or buffer to the edge of that brook. Ironically, it doesn't really matter in this particular case because that buffer falls inside of the existing jurisdictional wetland line, so there's no additional buffer that's required there. One thing I would point out as part of the SRPC review, it states that we're in the aquifer overlay district. I don't believe that we are in this particular instance. On another piece of property that we own for the plans, we are in the aquifer. But we are in the flood hazard zone. It's flood hazard zone A, so there's no defined elevation around Mile Brook. And so again, that's graphically depicted on the topographic plan as well. So the proposed lot around Mr. and Mrs. Fernald's house is proposed to be 9.4 acres plus or minus. The large parcel that would go to Joe and Dawn is 102 acres. And then we are proposing the third lot along the roadway, which is 2.1 acres. The smallest of the lots, topographic plan, you'll see that we meet the 30,000 square foot requirement for buildable area with 50-foot setback to wetland areas, 50-foot perimeter setbacks all around the lot. And then you'll see that there are some small areas of steep slopes on that site. The areas that are counted within that 30,000 square feet are less or greater than 50 feet in width, so no area is less than 50 feet. Each one of the lots shows a 4,000 square foot leaching area with 2 test pits performing within them, proposed well and or an existing well in the case of the existing home, and proposes the driveway locations for each one of the proposed sites. I would also point out as part of the SRPC review, I knew but somehow forgot that there's a 10-foot sideline setback for driveways now in the town of Nottingham. My knee-jerk reaction was to say the name, Blair, I'm sorry. The city manager's name in Rochester is Blair, that's why I keep confusing them. My knee-jerk reaction was to say, well, we'll just move the driveway 10 feet from the lot line. Since I reviewed it a little bit this afternoon, I think we would prefer, and the board would likely prefer, that we move the lot line over. So we would just add a small jog on that line, and that way the driveway can stay as shown, which sort of splits the 2 wetland setbacks. We're not currently impinging on a 25-foot buffer within those wetlands. If we were to slide the driveway over, we may, and I think we're going to try and avoid that for obvious reasons. So again, later in the plan set, we are showing the areas for widening. The current driveway has a range of width between 14 feet wide, and in some areas it's wider, 18 feet wide. I attempted to, one of you in the room will get a kick out of this anyway. I attempted to create a center line of that irregular shape, and I did the best I could. Essentially what I decided to do as part of the driveway design, or roadway design, is hold the north edge and then ensure that the southern edge met the width requirements. And so we have an 18-foot roadway proposed, which is an average widening of 4 to 6 feet. And with the shoulders that are proposed, which is a 1-foot shoulder, we would have a 20-foot clear way. At the existing culvert crossings at Mile Brook, we're proposing a taper, so that we're not proposing a widening in that particular area. That's commonly done in the crossings where roadways or driveways are tapered in and out. It's a reasonable taper to one. And again, side slopes are mostly foot slopes, and those are proposed at 3 to 1 with sediment erosion control devices along the side. Once we get out a little further to the cul-de-sac, we have decided to just simply super elevate the cul-de-sac to the center of the vegetated circle. It is a small foot slope in that area, so we propose just a small culvert crossing to ensure that the water has a road exiting. Soils in that area quite good. I don't anticipate that there would be much discharge from that area whatsoever. There's a good amount of overland flow between the culvert inlet and all of the contributing areas. And again, we would take our driveway access off from the cul-de-sac as well. I would note that the SRPC comment discusses ensuring that the fire chief is happy with that design. I could simply provide a template for the fire chief to review and approve to ensure that the fire engine makes the cul-de-sac work. I can assure you that it does because I've already run the template. And again, the remainder of the plan set discusses the sediment erosion control and just general construction details that would be required. So we have a waiver request before the board, and that is leads really to the next topic of conversation. The waiver request is that this road obviously does not meet your subdivision of the roadway design standards. Section 15.4 discusses the appropriateness of certain waivers in certain instances. We've done tests along the edge of the roadway to know that there is at least 12 inches of crack gravel in the driveway itself. That's the section that we propose to extend. And this section would not be paved for obvious reasons, both cost and sensitive areas around the site, so I don't believe it's appropriate to pave the roadway. And this afternoon, we received a draft of the HOA documents that would be required for the proposed roadway. We have submitted those to SRPC and the planning staff. We understand that the board would not receive those or discuss them tonight, but I want the board to know that they have been drafted for further discussion. As part of those documents, and as part of a number of the notes that I've placed on this plan, I want to make it very clear to the board, the applicant, and future users of this plan that in the event other development is contemplated out from this roadway, that either the road would need to be upgraded for that purpose and use at the discretion of the planning board, or not developed, and that this roadway, until it is brought to current Class 5 subdivision standards, would not be eligible for a public road to be owned or controlled by the town of Nottingham. As I point out in my cover letter, Deidre Benjamin has delineated the wetlands, all of the critical wetlands in the areas of concern for the project site. None of those areas have very poorly drained soils within them. That's not to say that the critical wetland at the center of the site is likely made up of all very poorly drained soils, but we're not anywhere near that particular area. I did point out in the overview topographic plan where those areas were, so that the board had them for review and discussion. And again, we've mapped out the steep slopes throughout the area of concern, so that that the critical wetland that I'm referring to is around the river that leaves the lake, and again that is shown on the critical wetlands map. Resource plans. All the soils on site have been shown as part of the standard NRCS web soil survey, and seem pretty accurate when compared to the test pits in the area. Though again, we didn't do do soil mapping on the entire parcel or test pitting on the entire parcel. We attempted to show where Don and Joe are going to build their house. That is shown on the topographic plans. Sheet. Number 10 of 17. Again, that area is within the shoreline protection zone, so when they intend to build, a shoreline protection permit would be required. We're outside of the 75-foot local buffer for open waters. We are outside, clearly outside the jurisdictional 50-foot primary structure line. We are within the 100-foot woodland buffer, but in this particular case, because we have such a large amount of woodland buffer on site, we would quite clearly meet our 25% within buffer requirements. Our tree points would remain intact again for the entire parcel, and then any disturbance that's within 250 feet would fall under the disturbance requirement for the shoreline protection district and would require. So I guess with that, I would be happy to try and answer any questions that people have.
Sure. And before we move on too far, so this is, again, a new application to us. We did see it as a design review, but this is the first we're actually seeing it as a subdivision. So we have to act on application completeness. Mr. Haney, I know you made a mention on it.
Yep.
But we have a waiver request. Other than that, indicates the application appears complete.
It does.
Would anybody like to make a motion regarding application completeness?
I'll make a motion that case number 22-017-SUB be deemed complete.
Second.
So it's a motion by Mr. McKinnon, a second by Ms. Anderson. Any further discussion on that?
I have one.
Yep.
Wasn't there at some point access going into the road? Wasn't that in question as to maybe purchasing some land on the side of it that was going to make it more accessible for a fire engine to turn to come in? Or am I mistaken?
No. I believe there was a discussion
At the very beginning?
way back about how the frontage is actually broken up because there's a small garage that belongs to the house across the street, so that actually breaks up the frontage of the larger parcel. And then I think you, Mr. Berry indicated that they had discussed potentially trying, but the person didn't want to sell it.
Exactly, that's what I remember.
Yeah.
So how did we resolve that issue?
With this plan. That's what kind of forced them into this direction, is one of the guiding factors to put
I
them
guess
in.
for frontage, what are we looking at now? I don't have the map.
So the frontage, as part of 15.4, and I don't mean to cut the chairman off, but
Nope.
the frontage
I'm trying to find it, so.
proposed subdivision is actually taken off from the roadway that we're developing,
Okay.
designing as a private roadway.
Okay, thank you.
And now that you bring up the conversation, because their frontage is so sort of chopped up,
Mhm.
and there's no contiguous 200 feet that really made sense to develop, that's sort of why we done
Okay, I get it. Thank you very much.
So we have a motion and a second to accept the application as complete. Any further discussion? All's in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All's opposed, carry 7-0. And would anybody like to make a motion regarding regional impact?
I'll make a motion that case number 22-017-SUB is not a product of regional.
I'll second.
Motion again by Mr. McKinnon, second by Ms. Anderson. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. And that motion carries 7-0 as well. Thank you. All right. Thank you for the detail and your narrative on the plan set. That's very helpful. So that brings it back to the board for discussion on here. If anyone wants to pull up the aquifer map, we can just
I confirm it's not.
confirm that it's not. So that is not in the aquifer district. So not subject to that, that piece. And I agree, I believe jogging that boundary line makes most sense. Again, instead of trying to move the driveway or seeking a variance for the setback, I think if that's a solution that works, that's a solution that works well, I believe, is to move that driveway, move that boundary line a little bit to give you that buffer. And so that we received the HOA documents, SRPC has them, I believe the standard is we send them on to our legal counsel for review. So we'll send that out. Kevin, I don't know if you'll be able to get that out, where I can send it off for comment to the legal counsel and just try to request it back before,
Document that was sent earlier today.
yeah, so October 26th is our next meeting. I don't know that they'll have time to get back to us, as we're getting into budget season. November 9th, I would assume that they could review those and get back to us for that date, if that works, but that's going a little ahead of ourselves, but that is a piece. Was there any other discussion by the board? We do have a waiver, so we can either act on the waiver now or have some discussion if there's any discussion.
I have a question, Mr. Barry. If you look at the dam on your maps, that's Drown's Dam. And the outflow from the Pawtuckaway Lake over Drown's Dam is the Elliott River. So the Elliott River flows toward Deerfield Road, and during that time, Mile Brook merges with the Elliott River, and that is a state protected river because it comes from a major water body. And in all of your plans, I see no reference to the Elliott River.
I didn't notice the Elliott River on the USGS map, and I didn't see it listed on the critical wetlands map, but I'd be happy to, I have a drone photo of this site, I'd be happy to trace the river in and
Okay.
write it on the plan.
Thank you.
I'd be fine with taking the waiver, because I have one of my comments is kind of related to what's proposed as the road designs. So I don't know if we want to get into the weeds on the road before accepting what they propose is kind of acceptable with the waiver. Does that
Yeah,
make
so you
sense?
want to act on the waiver? Or you want to talk about the road first?
I don't know if anybody else has any questions or comments on the road, the design that's proposed, but I wouldn't really want to get into it unless we're gonna entertain the waiver, since that kind of allows for that road design to move forward. So I'd be interested in moving forward on the waiver request.
So move. Do you have a copy of it? If
Yeah,
not-
yours right here. I'll make a motion that we approve the waiver request from Article 15, Section 6.1, Table 2, for the road design requirements. As, and if anybody has any, Mr. Barry provided a little narrative towards the, in the second to last paragraph or something like that, in the narrative that kind of describes the waiver request. If you haven't had a chance to read that.
It was a,
There should be a specific.
And there's a specific waiver request narrative in the back of our packets.
I billed for it, so it's important.
I'll acknowledge it.
Mr. Davies?
This is, the map that we saw tonight is not the final design, right? You're talking about changing the line between the, where the new road is gonna be, and we're not talking about that?
No, they were talking about jogging the line of what would be proposed lot 4-2, the property line, right now, the proposed driveway that would go into proposed lot 4-2-1. The driveway is too close to the boundary, so they would just jog the line over a little bit to give that 10-foot buffer.
Okay, so that'll have no effect on the waiver you're talking about today at all, okay.
So there's a motion by Mr. McKinnon, is there a second?
A second.
So it's motion by Mr. McKinnon, second by Ms. Mooney to approve the waiver. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, that motion carries 7-0.
Thank you for that.
Okay, so it brings back, the plans. And it looks like you've avoided, so there's no direct wetland impacts proposed. I'm just clarifying again, I know we brought it up on the design review. It looks like you're avoiding those. If anything, you've kind of moved away from what's shown as an existing trail now in some areas, to avoid those wetlands even further. Is my understanding of that. You show proposed lot 4-2-2. You do show some substantial steep slopes in there, but you're, on one of the parcels, you do show that it's, that the contiguous area of 35,000 square feet is actually, is taking those into account and not including those in the square footage, right? Correct.
And I believe,
I see it on,
it's hard not to get too wordy on a recording plan.
sure.
I think I call it buildable area free of steep slopes no less than 50 feet wide, just to.
Yep. Perfect. That's exactly what we require.
There's a couple, you wanna jump on? Yep. The first, and maybe I'm just haven't had a chance to find it. I think you said a couple times in your narrative that, you know, there's an understanding that they're building the road to this point, that if there's further subdivision or, there's language I know in the zoning ordinance about acceptance of the road. Is there a note somewhere on the plans, or has there been thought about putting a note on the plans, kind of reiterating what you said, that,
So on a cover sheet, there's a whole separate section I call private road notes.
I don't even look at the cover sheet usually.
Right?
I go for it, you should.
Right there. There we go, okay.
And so, when I had a internal project meeting with our attorney, we wanted to make sure that all of those spirits in that road note were incorporated into the HOA, so that there was no detraction between the two.
Yep, no, that looks good, thank you, I'm glad that comment's way on there. And then out of curiosity, I don't know if you know off the top of your head, what is the length of that driveway for 421?
I don't know.
Has there any bit, the reason I ask, has there been any consideration for intermediate, obviously that might not be the final alignment, but has there been any thought to like an intermediate turnaround or bump out, or, I think of it more from fire department access perspective, and, you know, that necessarily is more towards the end, but is there, I know we might receive fire chief comment or something, but,
We did.
he might, actually, I don't think he gave me.
He didn't say anything
He
on
said,
this particular plan.
yeah,
I mean, we can have pullouts, you know, commonly with longer driveways, I'm sure with your experience, we can provide a pullout or two. So if they're running relays for whatever reason, somebody can
Yeah.
pull out. That driveway also has to meet NFPA
Yeah.
code, so it has to be at least 18 feet wide also, but
okay.
some pull-offs, it may be a hammerhead somewhere.
I was thinking like somewhere up near the house, if,
Yep.
be a hell of a road to back a fire truck
Yeah.
back down.
Even like an oil truck or something,
Right.
it's
That's
like,
true too,
Agreed.
yeah.
last thing you wanna hear is the beep, beep, beep coming
Yeah.
You're all
towards your
making
house.
excuses for him and getting a recent machinery.
I just know I have a long driveway and there's a turnaround right near the end that I think everybody is thankful for.
Yeah.
No, that's a great idea.
Okay, and then, let's see, kind of just a general question, I know there's references to the existing access to the town beach. Is that protected in an easement? I'm just curious. No, it's just general allowance of the road, okay. And then the last one was kind of just to the crossing of Mile Brook on the road profile, it's looking like you said you tapered down. Was there any consideration, I understand the traffic volume will be low. Was there any consideration to, putting something there so that if somebody, a delivery truck or somebody coming down, comes down to that, they visually see that there is a narrowing in the road?
Yeah.
Whether it's
Couple of
telephone
reflectors.
pole with a reflector or a
Yeah.
reflector, so that might be just something that, just cause it is going to be a road per se, I imagine this nice straight road, Amazon van would get a little speed coming down it, so.
Yeah, we'll review either some reflectors or even just the really basic wood frame rail. or something.
Yeah, something, seeing the crossing there, I think that's it, but other than that, I think, yes, good job at trying to approximate a center line, cause that's not an easy feat when we're trying to revise a road. Okay, that's all I have.
The other thing too, unless it's in here, I went through a lot of the notes and, I didn't see anything, again, a comment just that it's subject to impact fees.
That's not in there.
So if that could be added on as well.
Sure.
Is there any additional discussion by the board?
Did Blair have anything?
I'm sorry.
No,
Yes.
in conversation, it's all been more or less covered. You know, I did mention the fire chief, and I didn't know if you could request bump outs on a driveway, but yes, that was what I was thinking, in addition to the actual cul-de-sac at the end. It does look, he commented, didn't say anything. I don't know if you want to just double check, follow up or something like that. You addressed B, which was the 10-foot off of the driveway, 10 feet off of the property line. Yeah, I had, what is I can ask you, what's the condition of the existing culvert that Mile Brook goes under?
They're in good shape. We did an inspection of them before we started the actual design of the road to know, how much cover they had, separation issues, things like that. So they're in good shape. They're
Is the
new-
pipe in good shape?
Yeah,
It's
they're-
not corroded at the moment?
Nope, they're new construction.
Okay.
It's ADS pipe.
Okay.
So it's relatively new construction.
All right, I mean, I said, asking the road agent, if you want to confirm the condition before getting after it, full design and stuff. And then, yeah, the HOA documents, it sounds like we're already gonna be sending those off, so. That was the extent of the comments. I do apologize about the aquifer. I copy and paste from the previous application sometimes to get me started, and sometimes little things like that get carried over, so. But, excuse me, everything else appears to have been covered.
Kevin, did we have, I thought we had road agent comment on the cases. I thought they was kind of like the fire chief did, like general
He did.
comment.
I did not print them out.
I have it right here.
He sent them as an email.
Yep.
And I sent them out to you guys. I can pull them off if you'd like.
If someone has them, if they could just read them off,
I'll just
for this,
read it right now.
germane to this case.
I have it, yeah, I have it right here for
Do
you.
you have it?
Yeah, I printed the email.
It was October 12th that he wrote it. Application, Joe and Don Fernald requesting planning board approval to subdivide 118. This property is located at 54, identified as requested. Except, what did he say about it? Oh, here we are. No.
It just says
I
remove
get it.
down pine tree, driveway culvert and drainage swales
Yeah.
downstream.
You guys are the road agent, correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
Charlie, I think you're looking.
Oh, I'm looking at the
Yeah,
fire
you're looking at the
department.
I'll just read it out verbatim. This is for the deer builder. It says, remove down pine tree, driveway culvert, and drainage swales up and down stream. Improve line of sight, especially looking towards Stevensville Road. Page 8.
The down tree is it's on that little piece of property.
Oh, where the barn is?
That little shed.
That's a massive
Yeah,
tree.
it's like bigger than the shed.
Someone's driving, sorry.
So we can't, so it's not on their property, we, specifically, if it's on private property, we can't require that, unfortunately. Because it'd be good to
So,
improve the
yeah,
sight
and
line.
is there a driveway culvert there?
At the entrance?
Yeah.
No, there is not. It's a,
Oh, he's asking for one. Oh,
Yeah, the
I
way,
got you.
the way it's worded is.
the road's in
I
a,
got you.
I'll certainly talk to Sean about that. The road's in a fill slope there. I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
it's a super elevated roadway
Yeah.
with no ditch on the other side, so.
And site distance, we inspected the site distance. I didn't think that there was a site distance.
Yeah, I think you
But I
showed
can-
350, well, on your plan,
You're on the
you said
outside of the
350
curve,
feet
We're
too.
outside of the curve.
on one side and 700 on the other.
Right. So I can certainly clarify with
Should we
Sean.
just follow up with him?
Okay. Yeah, I think a big concern would be if this ever went to a full roadway with, the standards set forth within roadway design, having Mile Brook and the wetlands there would be probably salt load and things like that, but as this is proposed, it's a minor increase in what's there now.
Last comment for the night, I promise. When you guys install the Fernald Drive sign, can you show a stop sign there as well? Just probably good practice.
Yeah, I waffled on that one, knowing what you would think of it. So, happy to do it. I didn't think it was warranted, but happy to do it.
I think if we're gonna name it as a private road, or consider it a road, it'd be good practice to have a stop sign or whatever anybody else feels.
I think it's easy enough. I understand the current ownership and everything that it really probably wouldn't warrant it, but, it probably is a good best practice.
Yeah, it's more so just to stay in line with trying to stick to as many standards as we can. Understanding we waive some.
30 by 30 is fine out of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
birds.
I want the big, those high with the ones in Mass, like 5 foot wide.
No flashing lights.
All right, Mr. Buell.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on the plan?
So we have to wait for HOA review, correct, before we can
It's,
approve? Or, there's not much to it probably, but.
it's probably better to do that, just in case, because if it comes back with anything that's substantive, there'd have to be a re-notification, but.
And we do need to see the plan revision for the driveway.
Right.
There's a few small things here, but we do have to approve a lot on it.
And then possibly, put in that, if you're planning on jogging, or doing a small turnaround or anything like that, showing that. So I think, it sounds like there's not gonna be a lot of conditions, but, if this were to go towards approval, but getting those pieces and then just getting the legal review buttoned up, I think would be, important. There's no further discussion. I would move that we continue. Again, we could put it to the 26th. I just don't know. It sounds like we have a pretty heavy caseload continuing. 11/9 would be the next date. And that would probably ensure that we get legal review back on the HOA documents in plenty of time.
Yep,
Is that's sufficient?
I'm not available.
Would anybody like to make a motion to continue to 11/9 at 7 p.m.?
I'll stick with it. I'll make a motion that we continue case number 22-017-SUD to the November 9th meeting at 7 p.m. with deliverables due 1 week prior.
A second?
Motion by Mr. McKinnon, second by Ms. Mooney. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, the motion carries 7-0. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. One question on the deliverables. Given all that most of these are pretty minor, do we need as many copies submitted?
We got 1 in 10, was
Yeah, I would think it's sufficient to not submit as many,
just need 11 by 17.
plans set. I mean, yeah, the 11 by 17, so we did reduce the number of large sets, but the 11 by 17s is usually what we want more of now. I'll let everybody chime in,
I don't
otherwise.
care, other than just trying to save a tree.
Yeah, do you wanna,
You feels for that, too.
I mean, just the pages that are edited or something like that?
Yeah, just the pages that are edited.
Do you wanna do that?
Is that
I
doable?
don't know, that's confusing too.
Yeah.
Alright,
That's fine. Sorry I
You
asked.
need at least one full size though for the
So,
office.
yeah, we just, it's good for you to know moving forward versus that, Tom just cut at least a full size plan sets
Okay.
down, so what do we do? 2 or 3?
I think we're down to,
We just updated we just separated our subdivision site plan applications, and now we have a site plan application and subdivision application before us. And we reduced in that the number of plan sets. Our subdivision regs, we haven't gotten there yet to correct the language, but on our actual application, we've reduced the number of large plan sets especially. And we've requested an electronic copy to go to the land clerk.
Okay, because the app still says 6, just so.
Yeah.
Long story short, Chris, is I think you can get 2 large, you can even print them.
the new applications, I think you had already submitted this, cause we just did it. New
We
applications.
just put it up.
Yeah.
Right, we're using new applications, aren't we?
Don't know if I got a chance to put them up.
Oh, okay, never mind.
Sorry.
Thank you. Have a good night.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll keep cranking along on the agenda. other, so other is, it's budget season. We have to submit our proposed budget to the interim town administrator. Well, the other, before I do that, we have a couple of notes. Mr. Lemieux is going on to greener pastures. He's agreed to stay with us through October 26th to help get us through our caseload. But,
I make a motion, we don't accept that.
yeah. Yeah, we don't accept. So I'll say it now, we'll say it again then, but I thank Kevin for all he's done for us, keeping us organized. It was a quick learning curve for him, and he jumped right in there and did so happily, or the perception of happiness anyway. So I really appreciate all you've done for us.
Dying on the inside.
Yeah.
And then obviously Chris Sterndale, town administrator, is he done now?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And we have an interim town administrator. I don't mean to jump on John's news. So we have an interim town administrator at the moment. I'll let John speak more to that when we go to that point. But we do have a budget that is due. So does anybody, are you able to project that? Thank you. One thing that's gonna help us that we need to keep mindful of is as the CIP committee gets rolling. That started? Yeah, that you're aware of?
We did discuss it at last meeting, but.
Once CIP gets rolling, especially one of the items we need to be mindful of is there anything from the fire department that is going to be germane to impact fees? If not, or one way or the other, we need to address our current impact fee for the fire department. The bond has been paid off, to my knowledge, so that was what the prior impact fee was for. So we'll either have to zero that out, or, you know, if something is in there that is impact fee related, then adjust it accordingly.
And we can wait until the CIP has solidified the list, right? Because we can do that anytime just via public hearing.
Yep. Yep, we just want to make sure I mention it, so hopefully we don't forget. Mr. Lemieux is just is displaying the current budget projected. That's the word I'm looking for. So you can see 2021's budget and the actual year, and then 2022 budget, actual year to date, and then what we're going to propose.
Absolutely not, no.
Can't see it.
There's no way to move that screen, is there? Or is that too
Can we
much?
move over there?
You can
Sure.
It's only gonna go that way, even if you move the.
Yeah.
We're headed over there, though.
So the big items on here are, and some, I don't know how much we control, like the planning board's salary secretary, which should be, hopefully we're gonna amend that line to say land use clerk salary. I don't know how much we can, have direct impact on that. I would propose that we increase it. We are, showing that we're under end of year budget, but if you projected that out through the end of the year, we would be well over, and the demands on the land use clerk have been sufficiently more so than the hours were allowed. I had multiple discussions with the prior town administrator on that, and we did some things to try to free up some time, minutes and things of that nature, but still, the amount of applications that we're seeing, the time it takes to just prepare those, the notices, and everything else that goes out, combined with everything that's going into, you know, competitive, to competing in the workplace right now for applicants, I would say that salary is low, even for a part-time position.
Could we get some ideas to find some money?
Yeah, and I think the other thing too is, I think, you know, Kevin came in with some knowledge on it, and I think that's proven, like, how quickly you picked it up and stuff. So your experience outside of this role, I think, was important, and I think when we go to find someone, they need to have some kind of, you know, experience, you know, in related to planning or building or something like that, because I think that made a world of difference. So it's not this the same as what it's been in the past, where necessarily it's been more of an administrative thing. It's evolved way beyond that. And we've heard that from Kevin and the kind of questions that he has to field and stuff like that, so I do think that we need to, I think we should look at the job description and really revamp the job description. And so I think it needs to be a position that reflects what we're seeing.
Yep.
This job needs to fill.
But didn't Kevin say that we already have somebody in line for it?
No.
No?
No, we have an interim town administrator, but to my knowledge, we don't have anybody in line for that position.
Have they posted?
I
I don't know if they've even posted
I
this.
didn't see it on NHMA, which is usually, they pick up that
So
stuff.
the intern is.
Interim town administrator.
The town administrator is coming in for how long? Just until we find somebody who can do
No,
it?
we have no help for this board. This board is done.
No. So, yeah, the town administrator, which is Chris Sterndale, so his position, there's an interim,
And the interim town administrator is not going to, he's
looking at budgets and.
yeah.
Yeah.
So this
He won't
board,
be here with.
no, he
sitting
will
over
not
there.
be.
We're
So I've reached out to,
Absolutely correct.
so a couple of things with this, and it's tough,
Wait, no, you know what? This is open to the public and this is what should be discussed.
Yeah, and this has
Trust
nothing,
me, you know how I feel about it.
and this has nothing to do directly with you, otherwise we'd go into non-public. So this isn't person-specific, this is position-specific in what we need to do to have that. One thing I don't know, if zoning board must have a salary line as well, I would assume, for that position. I don't know how much theirs is, if it's a comparable amount, or if it's a lesser amount, because they generally use the, we're the board that fields a lot more applications than ZBA.
But
So
your
I-
position is called secretary?
It used to be, it's land use clerk now.
Okay, so this is not what you're.
It'll be changed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's just, that's the term that's been in the town budget for
ever.
ever.
Like
Like that's the line item.
last year or the year before, we changed the
Title.
the title to land use clerk, because that was more in line with the role than secretary was. So the budget just hasn't caught up with the name, but that would be something we would
Land
ask them to
use
change.
clerk also applied for zoning and planning, not, it used to be planning board secretary.
Right.
Yep. So I did reach out to SRPC, to see, because if we jump down to line 99, planning board planner, 25,000 budgeted. One interesting thing on this, you notice it looks like, whoa, we're way under budget, you know, $8,000, awesome. We're just not current on billing? No, our budget runs on a calendar year. SRPC's budget to us and bill to us runs on like a June 1st to June 1st year. It's whenever we started that contract, so that's why it seems low, but it's actually not. We're definitely, you know.
Yeah, that's only 3 or 4 months or whatever. That's 3 months of billing,
2 months of building.
2 months, yeah.
Yeah, so
I have to cut that.
times 6, you know, we're in trouble. So these are the things, you know, and I'll reach out to, so I can be at the meeting to either present or have that conversation with the interim TA, as to why, you know, whatever we request in these numbers is what gets requested. Again, budget committee can change these on us. So it's important that hopefully we put a narrative with it as to why we're asking for what we ask for.
Up to that point,
Or as a chair, attend the budget committee.
I was just
meeting.
gonna say, does the budget committee notify when you're like getting certain, like?
We do
agendas
have a
for certain
calendar set up
sections?
for when we're doing for things, for what it says to town. But if you're curious, you can always email me and I'll let you know.
Okay, thank you.
That's what I was gonna,
Cause I wouldn't mind you there.
All right, I appreciate that.
I'd be happy to jump in on that too with you, Ed, if we need to kind of spearhead it.
That'd be helpful. So those two items alone, again, I don't know what would be a sufficient line item number 98 to make sure that we can actually hopefully attract someone and retain someone in that role. In general, finding someone with experience in that position has been difficult. We lucked out with the current individual, having, you know, a background in building and such, and understanding some of that. So it's generally a find and then train, position. Planner, we don't have a planner, so by contracting it out, we're reducing some of our fees by, making it someone else's problem to fill that role for us, and, you know, we don't have benefits and things of that nature that would come with an actual position if it was a town employee. So those are our big two, so we can come back to those if you want, and go through the other line items.
I have two questions,
Yes.
but we obviously might not know them off the top of our head. So I'd be curious to know, from the 2021 to 2022 budget, there was an increase of $2,200 in the secretary land use clerk position. I'd be curious if that was, and maybe we just, I don't know if anybody knows this at this point, but was that just a standard step up because of just things increase every year? Or was that also because of a desire to increase the competitiveness of the position? But
Good question, and I don't know.
Looks like
because I'm curious if we're looking at a similar step, just as a base step, and then if you're looking to try and entice better talent or somebody with more qualifications, then do you need to go above and beyond the standard step? So,
Did the budget for the planner position go down by 3,000?
and that's what I also noticed is that the planner contract, I assume that's a contracted amount, and that's what SRPC would be contracted to, actually went down, yet our caseload has obviously gone up. So I mean, I definitely would be in favor. I know that we've been in discussion with SRPC and their capacity, but at a minimum, if these applications continue at this rate, the planner position
Yeah,
needs to go up.
I think that down, you'd have to go back and look at the minutes, but I suspect that the budget committee made that change from, I would imagine that we went in with a 28,000 or even higher, since the 2021 was at 29,000, that we probably went in at either 28 or just above 29, and it probably got cut at the budget.
Can you mention that?
That's how I remember it.
Our number right there, what the 22 budget was 50,000, so sometimes people backtrack themselves into a certain budget, I guess. Okay. So I think the salary ones, we might need more, I guess maybe some more background on where some of the increases or decreases came from. But,
Well, I think what we do is we look at what, similar towns are paying for their land use clerk, and in comparison to what we're doing and what the caseload is and stuff, and we come up with a number from there. I mean, just, we know, from surveys that we have done in the past, that this town does not pay comparable to surrounding towns.
And just remember, the key to remember here is that because the town residents voted in a 4%
Right,
maximum increase,
right,
so every line item is going to be scrutinized.
right.
Every line item.
that's a 4% increase, meaning if it is above 4%, the budget committee cannot recommend it, correct?
No,
Or is it,
there's an RSA.
it cannot?
Right, it cannot exceed. Now, there's legal ways around it. Do we want to go there? Not particularly. But, so, all these, every line item you see this year will be scrutinized. It will be, if it's $10 here where you see and there's no money there, that's when $10 is gonna go.
So our actual contract with SRPC, I believe, so the numbers I have from SRPC were from July of 21 to June of 22. That's where, and it looks like the total was 22,000 or so, but the contract, I believe, that was signed was a $28,000 contract, so that's the prior year was. So for 22, for July of 22 through June of 23, I'm assuming that was updated and it's a $25,000 contract. Based on our budget. So if this is correct, we were under budget last year. We definitely have been leaning on, again, SRPC a bit more. And this doesn't even include things that we have to do, like master plan updates, so that budget cap is you know, problematic for boards like us that have these recurring items that pop up every 5 to 10 years that we may need to contract out, or things that we're legally entitled, you know, held to, and that if we don't do we pay legal fees later on in a different way? That's not in the budget.
Our budget is $50,000.
Yeah, and some of that is a little bit deceptive in that postage, generally we get reimbursed for, because the applicant pays for it, but it shows as a budget, because you have to have the money there. Advertising, same thing, that's why in the numbers, like if you look at 21, you know, our budget was 2,500, we spent 9,000, were we really that in the red? No, because it came back as fees from the applicant. But the way the budgets are done, they've generally been done.
So I think we
This way.
put together the budget as we propose. That's then gonna go to the board of, that's gonna go to the town administrator and the board of selectmen. The board of selectmen is then gonna have to start to decide, you know, for this 4% cap, where is the most need, and they're gonna need to make the decisions. But I think as a board, we put together a budget that we, based on what we're seeing, that we think that we need in order to serve this town appropriately. And we put that forward, and then, you know, it's up to the board of selectmen and the town administrator to then bring forward whatever they think is best to the budget committee for the town overall.
Correct.
And that's the best we can do. I think what we need to do as a board is just make sure that we're putting something forward that we see is the need to best serve this town.
Yep. Agreed.
This is kind of thinking more so justification when we get, not to get too far ahead. When we do case numbers, is it easy to go and find, is there like a spreadsheet or something to figure out what was there for 2021 for site sub? Basically get, like break it down, but also get total applications? Is that, we have
Yeah.
that?
Yep.
Okay.
So there's folders,
Yeah.
under planning, and you click on them, and it'll basically give you a case, you know, it'll.
Organized by case number.
Yeah, it'll advise it. Now, I did a little bit different this year in terms of just the way that it's numbered. Before they were really like numbered, I did them numbered, so I can just go over them really
Yeah,
easily. But with that being said, it's common sense, you know, it's a case file.
Yep.
A case file essentially represents a case. Now, the reason why I wanted to number them is because they were kind of all thrown in, conceptuals, design reviews, everything was just thrown in, tree cutting, so you know what was what. So I only numbered, actual cases,
Yep.
with subdivision or site plan, or the design review.
Yep.
So those would get numbers, the rest would just be conceptual or whatever.
Okay.
But with that being said, there is a way you can go
Okay.
through, plus I actually have, like paper copies of that
Yeah.
stuff. So I have a binder in there that you can wanna look at, you can grab, it's real self-explanatory, it just tells you the cases over the past few years.
Yeah, because that'll be something that we'll probably end up, I mean, my feeling is that we've, without knowing the numbers, that we've seen more cases, but also they've been far more involved cases, which is a big part of it too.
You get more, especially for, you're getting, almost every single one has, you know, some type of critical area, you know, steep
Yeah.
slope, wetlands of varying degrees, vernal pools, so, every one of those requires more,
Charlene said it, there's, the land available to subdivide is becoming,
More marginal.
difficult. Yeah, marginal land, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, how many site walks have you had to do? How many CUPs have we seen in the last month and a half?
well, we haven't acted on any.
But
What's that?
sidewalks, for sure, there's been a huge increase in,
DRIs, you know, we've had 2 of those. And when was the last time you'd had one besides the last couple?
and last thing, I think, the secretary position or land use clerk, if we can get that changed, is, probably before we can talk about total numbers on that, is figuring out if the zoning board does have a line item,
Yeah,
to get a total, I guess.
and I wish I had that number, and I don't, unless anybody can pull up the, pull up the budget from town meeting, that would have it in there, but, my guess is it's a far substantially lesser number than
Yeah.
that. I would move that we make that 20,000, again, it can get amended later on, but this would be our proposed budget to the town administrator for review.
That's what I had in my mind too.
So I had 20,000 down is my number. It's an 10% increase. You know, I'm cognizant of our overall budget, but we want to give whoever the town administrator is or the select board, you know, enough, hopefully enough to be able to find and attract and retain somebody for that position. Again, this is something we have to do as a town. We can't, it's not us asking for it necessarily, it's a town responsibility.
We're legally obligated to provide.
And if that falls by the wayside and things get missed, you know, that, with changes in RSAs, things most likely just get approved for the applicant without going through the board. So we have statutory timelines, and if we miss them, it's gonna be a problem. And it's much more costly to deal with it, on the back end, through legal options.
That legal line item would get a little bigger.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd be good with 20,000 for the proposed.
Anybody else have any thoughts on that one? And we can always, we can go through them and then come back around. I would say we pencil them in and then come back up. Is this editable?
Yeah, sure.
Do you mind typing that in as we go? So, line 98,
Under 2023 proposed budget, the empty column to the left.
This right here?
nope, column M,
Green, in the
Nope.
green.
Next one,
Oh,
that one.
sorry.
Yep,
20,000.
we're gonna go down that column.
So you want to just put 20K here?
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you. Planning board planner, the 25 to 28 seems like it is gonna be in line, especially with, if we ask for anything additional. Right now, it sounds like SRPC is kind of at capacity. So any project-specific things like a master plan update or anything like that would definitely be not until 2023 anyway on there for them.
I think there's value in going back up to 28 on this one, at least at this point.
In the narrative on that would
Obviously, we
be,
can look into the meeting minutes to see if that was why it dropped to a little bit, but
in the narrative would be that we have some, like the master plan update for review.
we have a separate line item for that too.
Oh, never mind, so,
Line item 109 is master plan.
yeah, so we can put it in, either put it in there, which is,
That should be a little increase.
Yeah, I mean, I think 28, makes sense, and, you know, I think the other thing we need to consider is there could come up in 2023 a huge site plan
Mhm.
before us, which is gonna be,
There's a couple that are decent size
right,
being
I mean,
floated.
there's one it's just pending, it's just a
Yeah.
matter of when it hits, and I think we're gonna need, so I think the 28 is probably
We're on track for the 28 too, right now, with some of our
right.
monthly.
Yep. Postage, we can leave the same. Again, that's one of those ones that,
I mean, not to be nitpicky, but if we're gonna start messing with percentages, this is just to have money in the account, right? You're essentially saying that there's money to pay the postage. It was 1,000 and
that's my
20.
understanding.
it's reimbursables. Just put it back down to 1,000.
But if we're year-to-date of 1,800, I think that's why we had bumped it up, because we were,
I mean, I imagine every year it's over that number, like you said, because it's a reimbursable expense.
yep.
So I'd propose 1,000, knowing how the budget review is gonna be going this year.
So if you put in 1,000 and then, under narrative, Kevin, if you could put that it's a reimbursable expense.
Yeah.
John, is that how that works? So you're a little bit more familiar with the budget. So with these items that are like advertising and things of that nature, where money goes out of the account, applicant pays it, it comes back in. Does it come back into that account, or does it just go into like a
Goes
general
back to the
fund?
general fund.
Yeah,
General fund.
Goes back to the general fund.
okay. So we look like we're operating in a negative if we expend above our lines. That comes out of the general fund.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, at the end of the day, I mean, the line items are to do the budget.
Yep.
At the end of the day, it's the bottom line, that's what matters. So when like people go to town meetings and they go, oh, PB printing, I wanna reduce that $10 or whatever, that's fine, reduce it $10, but it doesn't really matter where it comes in. If we wanted to spend that $10, we can spend that $10, that's up to the planning, that's up to the town administrator and the board of selectmen of how the money gets spent. It all comes down to the bottom line, so that's just, folks don't realize that a lot.
And is that zero, since that's the next item, is that zero because it's just general printing here in the office, or?
I'd put it back to $1, just because I think
I'm always a fan of $1 on a line item to hold it.
with the budget, it's better to have one.
Yeah.
I just, without really knowing, I don't know how you calculate it.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just not, just get printing paper. I print stuff, but like with postage, I see because I have to go in and I say it's for, like I, on the machine.
Yeah, right.
But I put in planning or it's for zoning, so I have to say what it's for, so there's somewhere.
They probably fund office supplies.
It's probably under
Yeah.
general administration, because if you notice here, there's no phone anymore. There used to be a phone line for the planning board, but they, it was, a few years ago, they put it all under kind of general administration. So that printing might have kind of gone under a general administration line, instead of breaking it out per department.
Planning board dues and
Is
conferences.
that printing because of all the maps we made?
No, that comes under,
I'm looking here for that.
that comes under one of the other ones.
Yeah.
109, I think.
Dues and conferences, it got brought down to $1 last year. This is something that, it's in the RSA that it doesn't force us to go to training, but it strongly encourages it. Zoning, I believe, is forced to go to certain trainings, especially new members. I would feel more confident having some dollar amount in here, like 500 or 750. Some of these trainings are online now, but none of them, to my knowledge, have been free, either the one from OEP, OSI, or NHMA. So if I think it just shows the town a lack of encouragement for training and education, if we don't have money in that line.
I think 500 is not bad.
I know we haven't spent much, but we're still coming out of COVID where, people are, I think, hesitant to go to trainings and things of that nature, but as we move forward.
More trainings are coming out though. The number of emails I get about like workshops and stuff that they're scheduling for the fall, people are trying to fill the schedules right now.
And we do have some new blood finally in the,
Yeah.
not finally, but we do have some new blood, so, at the board level, so, it'd be something I would encourage, especially if anybody else comes on too. So 500 in that one. Publications, 150. If we're under that, I'd say we keep that about the same. Publications, what we usually pay for are the RSA manuals.
By the way, order those, and if I'm not here, and, month or two from now, they'll probably be sitting in the office, so
Okay.
feel free to get them.
So I spent 15. Do you know what those cost?
They're eight, this year they were $8, last year they were 7, 8 and some change.
Yeah.
And I ordered 16, so one for every board member.
So 130 bucks.
And
So-
Sam, what was the-
128.
Yeah,
And then I
so we're
got-
right there.
I got 16, so, and then one for the other board, I didn't necessarily get one for Sam.
All right, so 150 is still pertinent there then. Registry of Deeds, looks like we're doing really well. We haven't spent any money on Registry of Deeds.
Well, I'd be curious if that's from the reimbursable side. No, because we get checks for that, right?
So, in my practice, what I do is I recommend people go down and go to the registry.
Do it themselves, yeah.
Because of just case in point, you'll see I have a Mylar you guys gonna sign. There was an issue with the Mylar, which usually comes from the engineer messing something up, not to throw it on them, but the registry is
Very specific.
extremely specific.
Yeah, they critique them,
Crazy.
yeah.
So I just recommend people go down. I say, we'll do it for you, but I recommend you, I've never had anyone go, all right, you do it for me. So,
Okay. So the 200-300 seems like a good amount there.
Drop to 200. Got a cut.
All right. And that's a, narrative would be moved to, have applicant responsibility. Applicant's responsible.
You want that in the narrative? Is that what you're saying?
Yep. Oh, I'm gonna add it. Yeah, it's fine. I'm making myself a list.
Oh, you
Yeah, yeah.
some of the narrative stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
Plan board advertising, we can keep it at 2,500. Again, it's reimbursable,
Yeah, reimbursable expense in the narrative.
so we'll just leave that as that. Planning board equipment, oh, no, I'm sorry, office supplies, 300, we spent 115. Kevin, do you know of any, like, big items that are planned for?
Not really.
Or for equipment, either one of those lines?
And then, like, they'll give me like a calendar or something like that that I can jot down.
Okay,
There's nothing.
so I'll just keep that at 300, and then,
Keep it 300 because it's 2021.
and then $1 on the equipment. Let's hope we don't need new computers.
Mileage for reimbursement.
It's
Does it like reimburse you if you're driving to the?
I would imagine if I had to run down to registry for something.
I think it was that, and also do conferences, so if you
Conferences.
attended a conference, you could put in for reimbursement of the mileage as well.
I think we actually can get reimbursed for site plan, for site watch too, but I'm not sure.
Oh,
Might as well just hold it then.
Yep.
50.
master plan, town map,
This one, can we even throw a number at it? Because we haven't really even figured out what that number potentially is looking at, if we have SRPC help or if we've got.
it's one of those double edges, right? If we don't have a number there and we can't put out a request for a proposal, an RFP,
Put the number in at 300.
for the master plan update, town maps.
Keep it the way it is.
We had talked about spreading it out over 3 years, doing the master plan over a 3-year budget.
Yeah,
Maybe do
Because, you know, you can't take
2
what
or
you
3
think about
chapters
this year's budget, but
a
then
year.
you start cutting too much off this year, when you go to next year, you're in the same predicament, it's lower.
Yep.
So, that's, again, I'm not gonna say let's max it out at the 4 possible, but
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
if you go with 1, it's gonna make next year more tough. Then when you're looking for something, you're not gonna have any money to go find it.
I can't imagine master plan paying out just $300.
No, that's not even gonna,
Well, if you're gonna really take a stab at it, it's thousands of dollars.
It is.
for-
tens
yeah.
of thousands of
shit.
dollars.
For a whole plan, yeah. I think you had the point though, luckily there was a big revamp, so it's
Yeah.
not as involved.
How often do they do the master plan?
we're legally required to do it every 10 years, we're
6 to 10, 6 to 10.
6 to 10, so we're at that end of that number now, so,
Well, I mean, put the line at $1,000,000.
yeah, I would say a grant, we can always put it out to
You know, maybe there's something else that's gonna be cut, and this could stay at that point. Just put it in the way it is, and then we'll just figure it out as we go down.
Yep.
We know we're going over budget anyways, it's not like we're gonna have to, but
Yeah,
put what you need in, and then we can figure out from there where we go.
Is
If you
some,
don't put it in, you ain't gonna get it.
something like a master plan where it's every 10 years, can you do a warrant article? Is that something a board, I mean, any department can put a warrant article out there?
Yeah, definitely.
what you wanted.
we can see how this goes through for the budget, and then put it through as citizens if.
Well, I'm just, I mean, that, it's kinda like the police, the fire, they, for certain things, it's the town town administration says, no, let's do that as a,
Have a
if
warrant
it's a one-time, it's kinda like your, they put money aside for the reevaluation every year or something
Like a
like that.
bond or
but it's-
something,
Yeah,
yeah.
and it's, the opportunity there is if you do it as a warrant article, it's not being nitpicked as just another line item, it's, hey, this is something, you have the opportunity to put a narrative essentially in that warrant article. And you're then defending yourself to the taxpayers who, you can say, hey, we're obligated to do this. If it's on a line item, it's gonna get cut faster by a committee, I think, so. I don't know if we can do that, we might have to ask the town administrator if that's a possibility.
If it happens every 10 years, why not put $100, well, 1,000, if you were gonna put $1,000 on that and then have it for each year? So you have to do it again.
Because you'd have to encumber it every
Yeah,
year,
I don't-
unless you were actually spending that 1,000 every year.
Okay.
That's where it comes in, yeah, I see what you're saying, it'd be nice to spread it out over and Well, and that's why they do the warrant article for the reevaluations and try and put a little bit in every year to try and soften the blow, but.
I'll ask. We can think creatively. That might be a way to do it,
Just because that number, if you're gonna do it right, is going to be a big number, and it will blow this percentage out of the water.
And I think the thought was that our master plan, so you can do all the levels of updates on a master plan. Some towns, really do very, very thorough, deep dive updates where you do charrettes or whatever with the community to find out information, get a lot of feedback. Other times it's just going through and updating tables and saying, yep, that's our update, We're probably in the in-between on this one as to what we are gonna do and what we could do. What we're gonna do is probably at least make sure the data is accurate, and we've updated census information that came out in between. Planning board legal services, I would, even though it shows 0, I would say that we keep that at, 500 or 1,000. That doesn't count for many billable hours.
I feel like we've asked for legal opinions too, so has it not been put in?
That's not, I mean, that's from August, that's not accurate, because we have used legal.
At least 2 times, I think we've asked for
I don't
legal
know how
opinion.
it got billed back or where it got accounted for.
Right.
Right.
That'd be a question for Betsy who's doing that.
Or maybe it didn't get billed out yet, I don't know.
Right.
That's true.
So I would say, the 1,000, again, it's ounce of prevention. Most of the time we use legal services. It's, some things that are required HOA, but that gets paid by the applicant, generally, I believe, for certain items.
Which is under
Open
this
space
line.
language goes to the applicant has to pay for it. But for us, if we wanna make sure that we're striking down the path the way we think we're supposed to be, reaching out to legal ahead of time is usually much more, cost effective than finding out, whoops, you did it wrong, and dealing with it.
I would just hold 1 and 1 again.
Yep, I'd keep that at
Can we
one.
go back to master plan?
Oh, no, we moved past that one.
I think that $300 is ridiculous.
No, we said 1,000.
Oh, 1,000.
Anyway,
Yeah, 1,000 there, 1,000 there.
But I do think it's worth pursuing. Is there, is a warrant article process easier to get a larger figure from?
I'll ask.
And we're actually.
Legal and, engineering reimbursement, OS review, we can keep that at $1, it's fine. Again, this is a reimbursable offset revenue. That reimbursable offset revenue would be nice on a couple of the other lines.
did you want to put that in, Kevin? Reimbursable?
No, it's on there. I'm saying the line description, I'm saying it'd be nice if some of those other lines said that.
Oh, if they clarified it as a
Yep.
reimbursable.
Plan board miscellaneous, this is miscellaneous, we'll keep it at $1, unless anybody can think of anything specific there.
This is the type of line item that'd be great to be able to put stuff like the signs in the future or something like that.
Well, the thing that got cut that we put in last year's budget too was membership to.
Yes,
SBC.
actually, yep.
And I think that was under miscellaneous, I think, but, I think we should put it back.
So for
Big number.
so the state requires regional planning commissions to exist, is my understanding of it. Blair can correct me if I misspeak on this. So there's obviously various regional planning commissions. We choose to be part of Stratford Regional Planning Commission, no, we're in Rockingham County, because most of the towns abutting us are Stratford County. And then I guess there had been some, didn't go so great with Rockingham Planning years ago, was my understanding of it. I have no direct knowledge of it, though. We're one of only 2 non-dues paying towns that are part of Stratford Regional Planning Commission. Out of all the other towns that are in Stratford Regional, in Stratford County, every town pays their part except for us and one other town. So, we get services as part of it. Yes, we have a contract for it. There's some other benefits, voting membership and things like that. If we are full members, it's kind of like one of those things where, in my opinion, is, we're utilizing the services. Yes, we're paying for our contract part, but we're not really paying our dues as a member. We're kind of like shuffling off on all the other communities that are paying their part. The cost for, it goes by population, so it's not just like willy-nilly, so the way they calculate dues to make it fair is by the population of the town. So we're, based on our current estimated population, I think this line would be about 6,500. If we, but I was gonna look it up. I asked, and then I forgot to write it down.
Dover and Rochester are like 20,000 something.
Yeah. So I would propose that we put that in, I guess, under miscellaneous.
Give them something to cut.
Yep.
In the narrative, and again, I'll add on to this, is,
Only 22%, that's not bad.
SRPC dues, and I'll speak towards that, again, that we're one of 2 towns that doesn't pay our share.
But you can't look at that 22%, because if you look, you've gotta look at the actual.
Yeah,
And if you look at the actual from 2021, and if you were to extrapolate what 2022 is gonna look like, we're pretty much right in line, really.
yep.
So with that, if you need to do meetings with the town administrator, the budget committee, whenever that time comes, I'm happy to do it jointly, or if you can't make something, let me know. Obviously wanna make sure somebody from the board represents us
Yep.
when the time comes.
Yep.
I think the first pass would be with the board.
So I think next
Yeah.
Monday is one potential date, the 17th, and then I think the 31st was the other potential date that were, put out there by the interim town administrator. So I will reach out, tomorrow to see if we can be on the schedule for either of those, and,
Well, the budget committee did have a meeting and they set their dates.
okay,
Yeah,
okay,
that was the thing. I didn't bring my computer, so I don't have it, but they set their dates already.
okay.
First, I think he wants to meet with the board. Explain
I'll respond back to the town, to the interim TA, because there was a,
Yeah,
what board.
yeah, of course, we're gonna have that, we have our meeting before we present our.
yeah, I think in the past, we've generally just said, here's our budget, and gave it up, and
Right.
then, you know, which leaves it only up to, you know, the ex officio to kind of go back in and do our battle for us, which this year's John. So, you know, us being there as well, hopefully gives a little more to that, you know, it doesn't put it all
It
the,
really comes from what you're
yeah,
Yeah.
it doesn't put it all on your plate.
budget all day long, might fall flat on the board,
Yep,
but that's.
okay.
Get into the nitty gritty of at the committee level.
Would anybody like to go back over any of these, or is,
No, I think it's
that look?
good. Vote go.
I think Charlie made a good point. If you look at actual year-to-dates, you know, we're in line. We're in line with what we've actually spent, so these numbers aren't just coming out of thin air.
It's a good point, though. You mentioned like how we call out 111 as a reimbursable expense, as if maybe in parentheses, I don't know how, if there's a certain way you draft them, like you said, postage, publications, or advertising, whatever that is. Marking those as reimbursable.
Yeah, I know it's kind of strange with these budget lines,
Yeah, I
but
don't, sometimes they can't do that, but.
I'm gonna ask, the title there to be changed. Okay. All right, I'll reach out to the town admin, interim one anyway, and, see if we can get on the schedule. And once I know what date I'll be on, I'll share it so that, you know, in case anybody else wants to be there, but, hopefully myself or Ian will be able to make it that night. All right, thank you, everybody, on that one. We'll try to clear up now. Budget, MTA, got it. So, moving on, public comment, time of night we save for anybody in the public to come forward and talk to us about planning board related items, just not project or plan specific. There's nobody here tonight, so we will move on from that. Approval of minutes, we have multiple sets. I know I've sent out some comments on some of these, so would anybody like to make a motion on minutes? Either 1, 2, all of them?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move that we accept the minutes from 7:27, 8:10, 8:24, and 9:14, all in the year 2022.
Is there a second on that?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Mooney, second by Ms. Anderson. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries 7-0. Great, staff board member updates. We'll start with Mr. Davies.
I have nothing.
Mr. Moore.
Well, I have the pleasure of sitting on the planning board, the budget committee, and the board of selectmen. Budget season just started. I wasn't able to make the last meeting, but I'll be at all the other ones. That's gonna be fun. We are gonna have our problems. The new guy we have that's working as our intern, his name's John. He's been the town manager for Barrington for 8 years, before this town manager for Rochester. Wealth of information, wealth of knowledge, again, but he's gonna be here only 3 days a week. As you know, hiring an intern like this is not the least expensive way to go this process, but it's just, it is what it is for where we're dealing, with the situation that we're in. And we'll see where it unfolds. We are looking to contract same company that we used, and I just don't name it off the top of my head, that we used when we looked for the new police chief, to find quality candidates for the town administrator position. So we'll see where that unfolds. But as other towns around, if you went and looked, they are paying a lot more than what we were paying. So that's going to be a delicate issue. This year we tried to be very generous to, town employees, fire, police, highway, internal, by giving all raises and stuff like this, which are well overdue and needed. But again, I still think we fall far short from that, as towards what relatively other towns are already paying. So I don't think this town administrator position that we're going to be looking for might not be the easiest to fill, if we stick with the old practice that we had. Because obviously I thought we had a good one, but hey, you can't blame people for moving on for, what they do, or what reasons they do. It is what it is. We all might think that same thing if we were in the same shoes. So that, it's gonna be a very tough upcoming season, for budget. Even dealing with the budget committee is going to be very difficult. So that's gonna be something that's gonna be fun to.
A lot of YouTube views on those this year.
Yeah, you've seen those right there, right? That doesn't really represent well of the people that are on the committee, for the individuals that are on it. But you can watch your own videos and make your own judgment if you want to on those. That's why it's very important that you, as members of the board, if you feel like the budget you're presenting on this, right, what we talked about tonight, is worth your time, it would be to represent yourself at the budget committee, to express your concerns. If in the fact that concerns about cutting and thinking that you don't need the services you're asking for, because I'll be more than happy to defend you, I know what goes on, I've been on this board long enough, but that's something to be concerned with the new direction that, some people might be seeing where this is going. Some people don't care the difference, but that's another story. So yeah, we're busy. A lot of major concerns, obviously our replacements for people that are leaving, and we know what the value of it they have and what they do for us. So again, quite a bit. As for general stuff, when we repave Flutter Street, it's great. We've been on it, nice and smooth. That needed to be redone, obviously.
When did it get done?
It actually just finished last Thursday. Right, Sue?
I didn't even drove by today, who knows?
I don't know when it was gonna
That was a grind too, right? That was
Well, yeah, the road
whole
surface
deal.
underneath, the road surface underneath wasn't up to par for what it should have been when they actually did it was a whole thing,
Yeah.
but.
She had quite a nice road when they had it ground down.
Yeah, oh, if we keep it dirt, right?
Kept the speeds down.
Bring the whole down to dirt.
And don't plow.
Sure. But, yeah, I mean, we're gonna see, next couple meetings will be more about budget. Cause we definitely know we gotta focus on that. We are extending our meetings and our time. So, and hopefully we'll get full representation on the board at those meetings. Or we can have a discussion with 5 members. But again, people's work schedules and stuff seem to dictate. So, it's gonna be tough.
So it'll be interesting as the budget process progresses to see, what other instruments the town has or citizens have to potentially,
Well, I mean,
increase items if they get zeroed out or whatever, reduced drastically, not just for our board, but, you mentioned.
well, you got
you
the
know,
fire department's
so
budget,
if we're
the
not-
police department's budget.
If we're not, if our salaries aren't in line with neighboring communities, who do we want to attract and hire as employees? And can we attract them first, and then who do we want to? And are we just a jump off point, a training station for things, which is always gonna have a cost that's not, you don't see it necessarily on the paper, but, if
Ask
we're
our police
always,
department.
if we're
They'll
always
tell you
just
they're a jump
hiring
point.
to then pay for their academy, to then get them as police officers, get them a year under their belt, so they move on. I know there's certain things we'll never be able to compete with, size and some pensions and things like that, but if the base salary isn't there either, every time I've interacted with our local police department, they've been stellar, so
Oh, they've been awesome.
I definitely
Every
wanna,
department we have right now is working the best they can with what we've allowed them to have. There's no complaint about any of the department heads or what they're doing. They're doing a wonderful job. I feel like I wish we had more to give them, but
when everybody's costs have gone up.
I was gonna say, to your point, the 4% cap is gonna have an even larger impact this year with the power of the dollar,
Oh.
as we've seen it. So
and
this-
if you start complaining about, inflation, well,
that's some concern. There's gonna be an overall decrease in what is provided by the town to
sure,
meet that,
we're going the
so-
opposite direction.
Yeah.
But we're gonna see what we can do to change that. Again, we are gonna work as diligent as we can.
Yep.
And, it's always putting, like, everybody knows it's always about the best effort of what the town is. It's not personal.
Warrant articles do not impact that number, correct?
Correct.
I'm always happy to have fresh eyes, like the interim TA, he's been in multiple towns, so, again, when Kevin took over his position, there was things we were doing, that's like, well, why are you doing these way, so we can always improve, so it's good to have fresh eyes sometimes to hopefully find some efficiencies that we can gain. I'm welcome to that, so, all right, thank you very much. Ian?
Nothing from me. Baby number 2 is doing well.
Excellent. I think I went through all my pieces. We do have that DOT 10-year plan, I'm sorry, the bridge replacement comments that are due. I know Ms. Mooney submitted some to me. I have to go back through that and get those out.
I think that my biggest concern at the moment is, are we going to be able to, put some amendments, together for next year's warrant article? Campus Future.
Yeah,
Good point. We need to put a placeholder on our agenda at some point.
we do. So I know there's a few that I was talking about doing, and I can definitely draft up language of the ones that I.
Yeah, and I took on one that I need to do that I haven't done yet too, so.
Yeah, part of it's just remembering which ones those were.
Mine was like something with the Earth movement.
So we'll go back through and see, but I think some of that's gonna be individual, and then make sure we get it on the agenda to not lose that. So we have subregs updates that we need to do, which is again, just a, drafting it, and then, doing a public hearing for it. And then the warrant articles for zoning are the bigger ones, but we definitely don't wanna lose sight of the season on that, cause that's shot us in the foot in the past.
Yes.
What is the date for the budget committee? The meeting?
I'm not certain. We don't have one yet, set yet.
No one knows.
I don't know what their calendar is.
Will it go out to us, so we'll know whether, where it's gonna be?
It should be posted when they set it.
It's whenever they do the town budget, so if you.
Yeah, if you want, just, I'll send you the proposed, I'll send it all to you, I'll CC everybody, the proposed budget, the proposed
Schedule.
schedule, sorry, say calendar, same thing, whatever. I'll send it all to you guys tomorrow.
Thank you.
Good question, yep.
The only thing I have to say is, when we did the site visit on Stevens Hill Road, which is a scenic road, and the electric co-op company, came and I forget exactly when they came to us, but they showed us what they were gonna cut. When I was there on Stevens Hill Road, I couldn't believe that they pretty much wiped out all of the trees, where what they submit to us is a selection of trees and then that they're gonna cut brush. And so I don't, like, part of me was like, can we go back to them and say,
What'd you do?
what the heck?
Especially that first in the beginning, there's like
Yeah,
a couple 100 yards in.
that was crazy insane.
On their easement,
Yeah.
Yeah, but what they submit to us on a scenic road, because they have to come before and they usually show us like the trees that they're gonna cut down, and then,
it's just not even on a scenic road. I live on my road, where the power lines went down there, and, I mean, they went right down to the dirt. I mean, they cut every little.
Brush grinders, they just grind that.
Just
right
basically
down,
was
yeah.
down, you know, I mean, that was nice, because I have a power line runs to my house. They saved me, you know, about 1.5 foot of vegetation, so it looks, you know, a little bit different. But then, when you go over the sides, it went right down to nothing.
well, that's what they did in Stevens Hill. too.
Yeah, looks like crap.
Yeah,
So, I don't know,
Saves them probably 2 years of coming back.
So we have to look back and see who
Wiped
that
out the
person
vernal
was
pool,
from.
really.
yeah, well, that was the other thing. Where
Saved them
they
2 years from coming back, that's how they look at it. It's all about the money.
yeah, I don't know necessarily, what we can do. I will go back to that specific one, read what was proposed to us and what is actual, and then
Shouldn't there
see
be a
if we
fine for
can.
that? If they propose something to us
Well, it
and we
depends.
approve it, shouldn't there be a fine for doing it improperly?
I have to go back and read the RSA as well, because it might,
Right.
the RSA might only protect certain trees of certain caliber.
They cut everything.
They'll sometimes step back onto their easement rights, which is generally, they have complete right to control vegetation within their, you know, X number of feet either side of their line.
15
So, like,
feet.
Yeah, so it's gonna be, that's what they'll try and stand back on and say, oh, we have the right to maintain vegetation in this.
The
but-
bigger concern, I think, was like, yeah, I mean, so what was pointed out on that specific sidewalk, was like the vernal pool along the road, that it was, you know, all the brush was ground down.
Yep.
Meaning, no, there's no shade cover for that vernal pool, so one of the things that came out of that sidewalk, separate from the application and things like that, just a general comment, was, you know, is there a way to map out like either high-quality wetlands or vernal pools along roadways? You know, that would be probably a grant that someone would have to write and apply for.
Don't put it in the budget.
And what would that information be used for? Well, it could be used for planning board purposes, or the road agent and things like that, so it helped the road agents be better understanding of, you know, what that is and how to treat them, so.
If you ever pursue something like that, it's to understand that after 5 years, that mapping is invalid.
Great. So a cyclical,
Yeah.
great.
Vernal pools change
Assessment.
like in a year.
Yeah, that's all I had.
Blair?
Was just gonna bring up, you know, starting to plan out what we wanna do for amendments. You know, we're only a few months into the budget, as we had all just discussed, and, you know, I had spoke to Jen today, I know you had spoke to her.
Email, trying to repair.
And, you know, we might just need to prioritize, where my time goes. It's not infinite, it is limited. Does it go towards, you know, plan reviews, does it go towards, amendments? You know, I don't wanna try to parse this, but it, you know, we end up, the last 6 months of the contract, I don't really have much time left, right? to do anything. So, I know it's kind of like a front-loaded thing, like, we get a lot of applications now, and we have the amendments, so
Yeah.
it's just, I don't know, it's something to think about.
In the last 6 months of the contract are getting back into the busy season,
Right,
they're April, May, June.
Everybody that wants approvals before construction.
exactly.
I mean, just knee-jerk thought is maybe we don't have them look at minor subdivisions, maybe, you know, we
Right.
have them look at site plans and major subdivisions, you know, or something like that. Not that that would relieve a lot, but,
It's hours we get back, yeah.
yeah, it's, and then that focus, but maybe, or we kind of develop like a criteria of the more complex ones, you know, that we have them look at, then, although those are more common than not, but,
Yeah, I mean, the super complex ones, you know, I don't know. The we might be able to create a threshold, and this is something I can peruse with the TA, is, do we just say, okay, well, that's very complex, we need to send that out for third-party review, which goes back to be billed back to the applicant?
Right, and then we save all that time.
yep.
Yeah.
Can we do that? I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, blanketly like that, or at some threshold.
That's a good point too, because when we send out for third-party review from our engineer, they They sometimes don't do as in-depth of a review, but they do review against the regulations, the design regulations, and call out codes and articles, similar to what Blair does. He's looking to see, has it complied with specific regulations, so.
Mhm.
As you said, as we get more complex things, we're gonna be looking to third-party review more. Like you said, there's some big ones out there. Those are certainly third-party review potential and a lot of time that we could save. Or devote Blair's time to some of these other items.
Yep. I think it's, this is that great thought process. We'll see what we can do. And hopefully that would, you know, not trying to take work away from you, but, wanna make sure we utilize it
Yeah, we'll
appropriately.
fill it back up.
Yeah, no, it appears that there's plenty to do. Yeah. It just becomes, especially this time of year,
Yeah.
you know, prioritizing for the next month and a half.
Yeah, and I think that was one thing that the town administrator was looking at with SRPC, was to see if there was capacity to potentially fill in, you know, in the town office for like the land use clerk position or something, you know.
Difficulty with that is being on site. That's the advantage of having Kevin is, I mean, amongst many other things, is being on site to take in physically the applications, record it, identify if they left anything off.
Yep.
That's the kind of stuff that's, you know, invaluable.
So,
Mr. Lemieux?
tailing on that, you know, I try to give you guys enough notice, you know, it's been, you guys just know now, but I, Chris, probably a month ago, that this was probably gonna come, and then probably a little bit more, it's been a few weeks ago. With that, it was in an effort to try to make, because I know what it was like for me to come in, and at least I had Chris. And, you know, it's limited, Chris, but if you got me started, I'm not sure you're gonna have that.
Yep.
And so, what can I do to set you up the best I can? And that may just be trying to figure out what I can do for you guys. I think you're probably gonna need someone on the board to at least understand, or, I mean, I know you guys have done this, but I.
We've never, none of us have done your job.
But I can put together a calendar, because we're gonna get applications in next week. Those are gonna need to get, you're gonna need to notify butters, you're gonna have to put notices together, send things out to newspapers, you know, anything that they're missing, communicate with them. So there is a process, there's a schedule that I literally use a calendar, and I know what needs to be done every month. There's standard things, like at the end of every meeting, I always know I have NODs that are coming up, those decisions that I have, So I can put something together like that and pass it along, so at least you guys have something to work with.
Something like a brain dump is, yeah, like you just, whatever comes to mind as your process is.
Yeah, I mean, everything's pretty much organized on the shared drive, the town shared drive, so I don't know how that access works for anyone. That's where all these things kind of live.
I think that quick checklist, like you said, like, just take a step back and say, okay, here's a new application, you know, do this, you know, here's your timeline.
That's what I think.
Something that dumbs down, doesn't dumb down, but strips down like all the extra language and says, you got an application, do these
Highlights
steps.
the key steps, yeah.
I think the most important thing is, because of things are time sensitive, that's the most important thing I've learned from this position, is that 10 days, you know, you gotta get, you know, notices out 10 days
Yep.
ahead of time.
Yep.
You gotta send NODs out by 5 days, you gotta have, minutes, some form of minutes ready in 5 days. Like,
Exactly.
it's all those, like, knowing what has to be done by law, you know, by regulations, that I think is important. And then you guys are clearly experienced enough to figure out, I think, a lot of the rest.
Well, the actual drafting of like the public notices that's sent out, is there somebody here in town hall that will do that, or are you saying that's gonna fall on the planning board temporarily, or is that unknown?
So I don't think,
Like, cause you actually physically draft, obviously, kinda like some of what's in the agenda, you actually type those out.
it's the same on
right?
the agenda, like, it's all this, I write it once.
It's a format, right? It's the same
a
format, yeah.
And you just follow, you can see, if you look at these, you can see them, and they all say the same thing, basically.
Yeah.
For the most part, filling in, you know, what they want, and then where they live.
Yep.
You know, via map and lot. and all that.
Scenic road or not, yeah.
Yeah, see that, well, those are the other things, you gotta, the scenic road, the CUPs, you know, all that stuff. But once you write it once, it goes on the agenda, that's where I started, I put it on, there's an agenda document, it's an Excel spreadsheet that pre-populates all this stuff.
Yeah, Chris, the new TA reached out to us to ask us about, you know, where we could fill in, so hopefully we can figure that out, you know.
So, if you do get someone,
Yeah, if you have it documented, I think that'll be
if you
fine.
do get someone,
Yeah.
I'm not that far away.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
I can come in for a few hours here and there, and be like, this is where this is how I do this.
Yeah.
So I'm fine with doing that.
Okay.
You will be on my way home. So it won't be that, you know, out of the way by any means. So, just keep that in mind, just think about it, but I'll do my best to just put together, basically, I think a calendar is probably the best of a month.
Yep.
You know what I mean, like, here's, this is what you're gonna do it.
Yep.
Before and in, and then this is what you're gonna do after, before the meeting, after the meeting.
I think it's a great start,
Probably good, yeah.
and I appreciate you thinking of that at a time and trying to set someone up for success after you is appreciative.
It's also good too, because we also have deadlines coming up because of, SB two.
Mm-hmm.
We have, if we're doing amendments for warrant articles.
Yep. Yep. I'll have to look back at what the dates are, but yes.
I do have a couple of items.
Okay.
One is Shay, which, Blair took a look at and sent an email out. If you guys wanna look at it now or kick it down the road, fair enough.
I wanna wait on that one, because I've been too busy the last couple of days to look at it, and I know you commented on possibly a couple things, it might have been even just a couple notes.
Yeah.
It was just raising it up.
We'll get to that.
And I read it, I just didn't have a chance to respond, and I'll take that one, because I know you had to recuse yourself, so.
I can bring that, so I'll bring that one to the next meeting. But the Linsky one, which was just a simple change, I told her I should have it for tomorrow, if you guys can just at least sign that one. I'm not even sure, that may have just been a sizing of a map.
Okay.
Or line through text, it's
Yeah,
it's
something.
one line through text and I'll reject it, so.
All right, and
I'll make a motion to adjourn then.
before we do that, I just thank you, everybody. Hopefully, we don't keep having these meetings run until 10 and after. I really appreciate all of you and your patience and your commitment to the town. It's really appreciated, so. We have a motion to adjourn. A second? Anybody?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.